I'm leaving my boyfriend after 2 years together because of his prenup demands. Why I chose to walk away from a relationship that felt one-sided. I'm 34F, breaking up with my boyfriend, 34M, because of a prenup. I've been with my boyfriend for about 2 years. Everything is going well and we love each other. We've been discussing marriage and he mentioned he would not marry me without a prenup. We discussed this in detail, and I did not like what he proposed. His family owns a lot of property, land, and has lots of savings. After marriage, he wants me to move into one of the houses his parents own. I told him I'm uncomfortable building a life and a family in a house I have no ownership in, and he didn't understand. I told him I'd prefer to rent a place together, or we can live temporarily in one of his parents' houses and look at property together, but he refused. He said he liked the houses his parents and he already owned. He said he would not buy other property. He said he would not sell any of his property to buy one with me. He told me if I wanted to own property, I could save up money by living in one of these properties and invest in one myself. Problem is, he would be entitled to half if we divorced since my purchase would happen after marriage. He told me I could pay his parents' rent if I feel like I don't belong on the property. He told me I could buy half of the house we live in from his parents. Problem is, I don't like the houses that him or his parents own. They also have a lot of stuff and I feel like there's no space for me. I want to look at houses, I want to pick the place I live in, and I want to do it with my partner. I've made this clear to him over and over, but he won't budge. He earns more than me, and he has more assets than me for sure. He made it clear he was afraid I was a gold digger, and he wanted to protect himself and his family's assets from me, which I can understand. This whole thing has made me feel very weird. This topic has come up before, and it has always made me feel very small. It makes me feel like all he cares about are his assets. It makes me feel like he wants me as long as I fit into the life he already built and doesn't care to build one with me. It makes me feel like a gold digger. He has enough money to retire right now and live comfortably. I don't. He basically told me that whatever money he earns now, he can spend, so he won't be investing in too much anymore. He expects our earnings and our savings after marriage to be split. Which I feel off about. I'm sure this is normal for some people. I'm sure other people would be happy to be with someone who was well off. I am not. I want someone beside me building a life with me, not someone who has built a life with his parents and wants me as long as I behave and fits into his life, which is how he's been making me feel. So I'm leaving him. I welcome opinions on this. But yeah, it's been too long that this has made me feel off about our relationship. I'm protecting my peace and leaving him with all his houses and money. TLDR, BF and I are talking about marriage. Boyfriend and his family are well off. He wants me to live in a house I don't own, and doesn't want to look at houses with me. Wants half of post-prenup assets. So I'm leaving? Relevant comments. OP adds context to the prenup talk during their relationship. No. He mentioned prenups very early, and I would keep asking him about the details, but he would keep it very vague, and assure me we would work it out when the time came. I never asked him about his assets, and I never actually knew how much assets his family had. The only things I knew were from some of his one-off comments about certain assets. If he mentioned this tenant or that tenant, or this thing they have to repair, etc., etc. I had also initiated these conversations. He mentioned wanting to live with me and work towards marriage. I figured then that time had come. This is when I sat him down and asked him what he expected from me, what he wanted, and to clarify the conditions of any prenups he wanted to propose. He still tried to dodge my inquiry. It took so long for me to pull this information out of him. I guess I did wait 2 years, but marriage talks seemed like the right time to push him to discuss it. Update. So many things have happened. This is a bit of a rant, and I know I'm missing parts, but I'll try to cover the important bits. Before I start, here's some important context. I have a stable and rewarding career, and though I don't earn as much as him, I am very happy with what I can afford. My parents have always taught me that women should be independent, and I've taken that to heart. I live below my means, which has allowed me to put aside money for savings and investments. A lot of comments have mentioned that I should take the free rent and that it would somehow set me forward in life, but for me, giving up my sense of autonomy and control over my home, my safe space, is not worth the potential savings. I lived with my parents and saved aggressively until I was 30. So I am lucky enough to be in a position where I can comfortably afford rent or a mortgage by myself. Plus, he expected the living situation to be permanent. I would not move into a house owned by someone else just to save on rent. Would it be nice to save $2,000 a month? Sure. But most people pay rent, and I am not an exception. If I really wanted that, I could move back in with my parents. But again, autonomy is very important to me. Also, if he's this stubborn now, I don't see how this situation could be improved later after I already moved in. I could also counter the prenup and make it so all my accumulated assets stay mine, or put in a clause that I'll be compensated for any children we have, or put that I'd get alimony or at least have a roof over my head in case we divorce. But for me, that feels overly transactional. It also gives me the vibes that I'm going to be living with a roommate who I sleep with and might have babies with, not a partner. I prefer to feel like we're in it together. He can keep what was his, but I want to build up what is ours. Also, if everything is completely split, it'll open up a new can of worms. How will our expenses be split if I'm working and he's just chilling? What happens when we have children? He has money saved for them, but will I get a say in how we spend that money? I know these can be worked out, but this is not the type of marriage I want. I can't predict everything that will happen, and I don't think I can capture it in a contract. And it's already been so heartbreaking for me, I don't want to go through more. Anyways, yada yada yada. I'll just say that it felt like I was being stripped of my autonomy, stonewalled, and treated like a hostile. Okay, on to updates. So I told him I needed to end this relationship. I appreciated and truly enjoyed my time with him, but our financial values and the preferred married lifestyle just don't match. It was a quick and easy conversation tbh. I expected the breakup to be a bit of a process, not a one and done thing, since our lives overlap a lot. I'm also in contact with a lot of his family, so OFC, during this whole time, a lot of them got involved. But blah blah. Not super relevant to updates. Talk with his parents. Okay, I love his parents. I had a great relationship with them. I would go over to their house, we would have food, chat, watch TV, sometimes I would go to the parties they host without my ex if he was busy. A few days after my talk with my ex, I went over to say goodbye. I didn't know if the prenup was family enforced or not, so I kept it very general and mainly focused on how the situation made me feel and what I was looking for in a relationship. His parents were shocked when I told them why I was leaving. I'm going to bullet point the rest. His parents really want grandbabies. However, my ex's younger brother and SIL do not want kids. They were so happy when I came into their lives and she found out I wanted kids. His parents had created their wealth together, with his dad being the major breadwinner for most of the relationship. His mom was shocked at what he was offering me, saying these aren't the values he was raised with. She had been effectively retired since almost 15 years ago and she said ex's dad never made her feel uncomfortable because of the difference in earning potential. They told me that they built their assets for themselves and their children. They said that includes whoever their children decided to share their lives with. They have many properties. However, they also have enough investments that they can live off of those. They told me their plan was to sign over a house of our choosing as a wedding gift, or sell a house and give us cash so we could buy a house we both wanted. As they got older, they planned to evenly divide their properties between my ex and his brother, since they wouldn't want to manage the properties anymore, and live off investments. Ex's mom said she would have made sure my name was on my ex's portion, especially since we were wanting kids. They mentioned investments will go directly into funds for grandkids after their passing. Maybe this is what my ex was referring to when he said his children would be set. Bit morbid though. Ex's mom told me that the mother of her grandbabies would be taken care of, and she wanted us to be on equal footing while raising a family. TBH, this conversation was kind of like a weight off my chest. I always loved his family and never felt excluded, but the prenup talks left me confused and hurt. What they said fit with what I knew from my ex and them before. I'd be lying if I said I didn't start imagining this life I talked to my ex again. I'll bullet point this too. Basically, he told me, his dad had joked before about how he hoped him and his brother would not find gold diggers, and that's where that comment came from. He felt responsibility to protect his parents' assets, since he didn't feel entitled to them. So by extension, I wasn't entitled either. In his culture, sons carry on the family line, so he felt he had to keep his assets in the family line, which I'm not part of, but any sons we had would be. Most of the assets he's worried about are under his parents' name, and he had never asked for their opinion on what to do. He just did what he thought he should be. He also said he isn't that well off. And that his assets shouldn't come between us. This is still confusing to me. Isn't this whole thing because he was well off, and wanted to hold on to what he had and not create a shared lifestyle? I think maybe he meant he didn't own much, and most things actually were under his parents' name. He felt he was punching above his weight with me, and was scared I would leave him. He was afraid I was with him because of his finances, since that was the only thing he had more of, whereas he said I am intelligent, hardworking, beautiful, blah blah. He was scared about moving forward with the relationship, but instead of communicating, he became defensive. To me, It seems like he said and did things because he was feeling deeply insecure. He had made a couple passing comments before about me being more beautiful than him, or how I'm more hardworking, etc., but I had always taken them as compliments, not self-deprecating comments towards himself. He's such a caring, funny, and intelligent person, just in a different way than me. Also, I know he's not as confident as he comes across, but I had no idea that his insecurities ran this deep. He also apologized over and over about how he didn't mean to make me feel like an outsider to him and his parents, and insisted that he wanted to share a life with me. He said his insecurities and fear got the best of him, and he didn't handle it well. He had taken advantage of my patience and lashed out because he felt inadequate and scared. It broke my heart, because I think all this could have been avoided. We've been through this song and dance before many times, where he would feel some sort of way, then act out as he's processing it. Until now, I always stay through it and we move on. But it's never gone on for so long. But I guess the issues we've faced before were smaller compared to mapping out our whole lives. I've pushed him to seek individual counseling and we've attended couples counseling together, but I can't force him to sit and identify his emotions or employ the tools we were taught. The prenup conversation happened over a long period of time. He had so many chances to pump the brakes and reflect on what he was saying, and simply just listen to me. But he didn't. He then sat in front of me saying that everything he said before was not what he meant. He said he would be happy to take care of me and our future kids, we could buy a house together, or rent if I wanted to, because now he wasn't scared about creating a life together. Completely opposite to everything he had been saying. But how unsettling is it that he seemed so completely comfortable and confident in the hurtful words he previously said, and was okay with placing me in a very unequal position in the relationship. Despite me continuously trying to articulate what I wanted, and how he was making me feel, he didn't even consider my side. Over months. I know I have a good deal, with what his parents are offering, and I know him and I get along super well. But I'm not marrying his parents. I can't have his mom with us during every argument or life decision we take. Thinking back, I can count on one hand where we've run into issues, and he was able to address it without acting up. He's such a nice guy, but I can't be his garbage bin every time he needs to sort out his feelings. It's already worn me down. He's a grown man, he's intelligent and intuitive, he's had 2 years to learn how to communicate with me, and he's not. I honestly can't tell if what he said to me is genuine, or coming from his parents, or coming from a fear of losing me. I could give him the benefit of the doubt again, and move forward with the relationship, as I've done in the past, but I'm tired. I think this is a fixable problem, but I also have not seen any improvement since we started dating. If anything, this prolonged experience has made me feel it's gotten worse. I will not make the mistake of investing in a man because of what he could be instead of who he is. If the last few months are a testament to how he handles stressful situations, I can only take things as they are, and assume they won't change. This whole thing has left me sour. I don't need too much, but I do expect to be treated with love and support, even during times of disagreement. I cannot just forget the feelings and words I've felt and heard over the last couple of months. I can't just unhear and unknow that he is afraid I'm a gold digger. That was just one of many comments that really hurt me. I think life will have a lot more ups and downs, and I cannot imagine what kind of difficulties we will face if this is how we communicate, even after identifying it and working on it in therapy. For these reasons, I'm still choosing to walk away. Very diff from leaving because of a prenup, but it is leaving nonetheless. And TBH, this hurts more. I know it will hurt for a while, but I pray I'll be avoiding heartache and complications in the future. Who knows? If it was meant to be, maybe we'll find our way back. For now, I've told him and his family I need space and time. I know that it seems like I'm giving up a lot, but OFC there are things I can't put in a post. I actually wrote the above quite early. But I didn't post because it didn't feel like it was over. But now after this time, I know it is. It's been tough, and it's only been a couple months, but I'm sure I made the right call. It's tough watching everyone coupled up and having children, but it is what it is. I'm proud of myself for leaving and I'm slowly healing. Thank you everyone for your comments and DMs. Sorry I couldn't get back to everyone, but I appreciate you all. My entitled sister abandoned her 3 children, so I raised them. Years later, they offer me money as a thank you, but she demands it. Hello, I am 48F, and my younger sister, Diana, is 46F. Diana and I never got along well as youngsters. She was always snobbish and unpleasant to me, so we split up as soon as we graduated high school. I elected to continue my education, whilst she preferred to live with her boyfriend at the moment. It was lucky that her lover was wealthy, as our parents could never have afforded the rent for her to live alone. However, she made it abundantly obvious to our parents that she was unconcerned about their opinions on her life and would do whatever she wanted. So my parents never tried to stop her and instead let her go free. Diana had twin girls at 20 and a boy at 21 while living with her lover. My parents were pleased for her, but also anxious because she now had many responsibilities and no work. She was wholly dependent on her boyfriend's money to support her lifestyle. Diana never married her partner, which I believe was a mistake because she would have been entitled to alimony if they split up. They had to part ways after Diana discovered that he had been cheating on her. Thankfully, he provided the child support she was entitled to, but he chose not to be a father and signed away his parental rights. The girls were 3 years old at the time, but my nephew was only 2. After that, my sister was fully on her own and required all of the assistance she could get to maintain herself. Despite our sour relationship, I chose to assist her, primarily owing to pressure from our parents. At the time, I made a respectable living, but it wasn't enough to sustain all 4 of them. However, my parents and I gave a tiny bit of money each month, and they were able to make ends meet. She struggled for the first several months because she lacked a degree and work experience. She had to start at the bottom and work her way up, which forced her to dedicate a significant amount of time to her employment in order to grow rapidly. But this was difficult because she also had to consider her children, and she couldn't simply leave them at home. Hiring a babysitter was a possibility, but it was prohibitively expensive, so she was forced to rely on me or her friends. Our parents were also working and contributing financially to aid her, so they were unable to stay at home with the children. I was in the same predicament. She didn't have any friends who would take on the duty of minding her children while she worked because they all had their own lives and occupations. As a result, she was limited to minimum wage positions that allowed her to work flexible hours and return home quickly. This allowed her to avoid paying the babysitter to stay with her children for an extended period of time, which would have been prohibitively expensive. This condition persisted for a few years, and I believe Diana began to despise her own children because she saw them as hurdles to her success. She said that they were the only things preventing her from moving forward. I would pay her a visit on occasion, not for her sake, but for the sake of the children, to make sure they were doing well. I didn't have a nice connection with her, but I wasn't ruthless enough to let innocent children suffer because of their mother's poor decisions. So my parents and I would check on the kids on a regular basis. They were always complaining about Diana's mistreatment of them. She would chastise them for minor infractions and strike out at them simply for being children and trying to have fun. It was a dreadful existence for all of them, and I hoped I could help them by removing them from that place and keeping them with me, but I couldn't because she was the rightful parent and I had no legal authority over them. Furthermore, she received child support from her ex and was doing her best to make ends meet. I felt awful for her, but even worse for the kids. Diana started seeing other men, which made things considerably worse. Every time a relationship failed, she blamed her children. She was convinced that once her partners discovered she was a mother of 3, they would abandon their relationship with her. I believe it was because she never mentioned her children during the early stages of dating, only bringing it up after a month or 2, which appeared dishonest. I tried several times to explain this to her, but she was convinced that she was being rejected because she had children. She kept teasing them about it, reminding them of how their father had abandoned her and threatening to leave them as well if they didn't behave. The children were scared of her, and their childhood was defined by their mother's narcissism. This continued for years. Several times, I considered taking the kids and fleeing with them, but I couldn't. I could not petition for custody or denounce her because, while her actions were wrong, they did not justify taking the children away from her. So the scenario remained, and the kids were simply grateful to have me in their life. My parents were too elderly to be their pals, but I was always there for them when they needed it. They could never tell their mother about their issues, but they could always go to their aunt, which they did. Whenever they had problems with school, academics, or even Diana, they would come to me, and I appreciated their trust. It's no surprise that when they turned 18, they decided to leave their mother's house and move in with me instead. Now that they were no longer children, they could select where and with whom to live, and they chose me. Diana was clearly dissatisfied and had a lot to say. She stated she had squandered 18 years of her life raising these children, only for them to abandon her in the end. She was really unpleasant about it, telling me that if I had wanted to raise her children so badly, I should have stepped in sooner rather than taking over after the work was basically done. I wanted to tell her that she hadn't actually raised them. They had basically raised themselves because she was usually at work or out on dates with guys who eventually dumped her after discovering she had 3 children. She had no idea what her priorities should be, and it was clear why things turned out as they did. The children selected the person who had genuinely been there for them over the person who had always tortured and reprimanded them since she couldn't find anyone and was miserable in her life. It was evident that she had no idea she was harming them because she was suffering herself. However, I did not want to rub it in her face because I knew it must have been unpleasant for her, which is why she was lashing out at me. So I kept my mouth shut and that was it. After that, we didn't really communicate. Her children opted to leave her and live with me. Diana also chose to cut ties with all of us and cease speaking to anyone, including our parents. This was weird because they had done nothing to deserve it. I believe the fact that they hadn't chosen her side against me when my nieces and nephew opted to live with me irritated her, so she cut them off as well. It's been 7 years, and they're all doing well now. I don't know what Diana has been up to, but I know her children are doing well. My nephew attended medical school and is now a pediatrician. One of my nieces has a degree in literature and is now a teacher, and her twin sister has a hair shop. I assisted all of them in obtaining business loans and financed them to the best of my ability. I'm very proud of them because they've gone a long way from their previous home. They are now living apart. They only stayed with me for 4 years, and even then, it wasn't really like they were living with me because they were generally away at college and only came back on occasion. I believe they didn't want to return to Diana's home, where they didn't feel wanted. It's been 2 years since they all moved out, and I'm very thrilled for them. I never expected anything in return for what I did because I truly believed it was the right thing to do. They were just kids, and no matter how bad things were between me and my sister, I could never be callous to them. I've always had a soft spot for them, especially since I've never had kids or married. It wasn't my cup of tea, but for them, I wanted to be there as a parental figure because their father wasn't around, and, well, we all know who Diana was. They needed someone, and my parents were too old for the position, so I stepped forward. That is all I did. I never anticipated anything in return, but I am grateful that they are the type of children who think I deserve a gift of appreciation for what I done. Even though I don't believe it was something that required compensation, I appreciated their gesture. About a week ago, I celebrated my 48th birthday with my friends and family, including my nieces and nephew. I had a great time, and my nephew was kind enough to organize everything for me. Despite my desire to pay for everything, he insisted on covering the costs because he is now earning enough money to do things for me and display his appreciation. After the party, the 3 of them sat me down to talk. They told me that now that they were all financially established, they wanted to express their gratitude by collectively writing me a check. I tried to explain that it was unnecessary because I was still working and could support myself, but they insisted. They claimed it wasn't about repaying a debt. They could never repay me for what I had done for them since it wasn't about money. It was about the encouragement and faith I had provided them, which they could never fully repay. This was their humble attempt to show their appreciation. I was deeply moved by their genuine act and wanted to share it on social media. I just wanted to thank them for everything they were doing for me. My sister and I hadn't spoken in years, so I didn't think she would care. I was blocked on every platform, and I assumed she wouldn't see it, so I felt it was fine. Diana had never followed up with us or inquired about her children's well-being after they had left home. Granted, it was they who broke up with her first and moved in with me, but that was her fault. The least she could have done was show interest in their lives and try to be a mother figure to them in order to make one for her faults. But, to be honest, she didn't seem to care about the loss of communication, so I figured she was all right. Anyway, following that post, I received a reply from her a few days ago. I wasn't expecting it because, as I indicated, we hadn't spoken in 6 years. However, I should have predicted that as soon as she realized her children were financially secure, she would start sniffing around like a bloodhound, trying to figure out how much money she could obtain from them. In her reply, she stated that she had seen my post and wanted to talk about her children. She recognized that she had made mistakes in the past and had not been a good mother to kids, but she felt compelled to give herself another shot. She claimed she had missed them a lot over the previous 6 years. I'm not sure how much truth there is in that statement because if she truly missed them, she could have contacted me at least once. She asked me to speak with her children and help bridge the gap between them, as they respond well to me. The timing was strange, so I ignored her message. However, when I failed to react, she called me in the evening, and I snapped. She insisted that I assist her in reconnecting with her children, but I refused. I was quite aware that she was merely pursuing their money, not because she truly cared about their well-being. If she truly regretted what she had done, she would have contacted them directly rather than talking to me. She couldn't let go of her pride and ego for a single second. She still expected her children to contact her, despite the fact that she was the one who had made a mistake. It was amazing how entitled she was. She tried to dispute with me, arguing that she wasn't pursuing their money and that it was offensive for me to suggest so. I assured her that I was not implying anything. It was so obvious. I felt appalled and repulsed by what she was doing. She then accused me of stealing everything from her, claiming that I had already stolen her children and was now stealing her riches. I informed her that I didn't need the money and was originally hesitant to accept the check, but now I was going to take it all because she didn't deserve it. Now she's crying on social media, telling everyone what I said and attempting to make me seem bad. Some of my relatives say I went too far with what I said, that I'm greedy, and that I owe her an apology, which is absurd. That is why I am here to inquire if I'm in the wrong for telling my sister that she does not deserve the money that her children have decided to give me. Update. As some responses advised, I recounted the situation with my nephews and nieces. They informed me they had heard about it from a few of relatives and had considered speaking with me but had not had the time. However, after I called them over and discussed it with them, they informed me that they believed I did the correct thing. My nephew was open about his views, stating that he had never considered of his mother as a maternal figure throughout his life. He always blamed me because she had never been there for him, and my niece agreed. He'd always been the most outspoken of the group, so it was predictable that this was all coming from him. My nieces were too emotional to speak, but he was quite angry and upset. He explained that Diana only spoke to me since she had never done the basic minimum for them. This was despite the fact that she was receiving child support from their father, and even then, she would humiliate them and make them feel horrible for merely existing, which was not their fault. They believe I did the right thing and have informed me that they will not contact their mother, regardless of what happens. They also believe that I should stand up for myself and explain my side of the story online now that Diana has decided to speak negatively about me on social media. They believe that this is the most effective approach to convey the message, therefore that's what I'll do. I'm delighted they opted to take my side in this because my parents are staying out of it and have stated that they don't want to get involved. Diana never spoke to them after her children cut her off, which I find unusual. My parents' polite approach to this problem strikes me as unusual, given that they have not communicated with Diana in the last 6 years. I was disappointed, but at least my nieces and nephew support me. Now many people have asked me why I did not petition for custody and have the children taken away from Diana if I knew she was a bad mother and was mistreating them. I mentioned in my piece that, while her actions were wrong, they did not constitute torture, abuse or neglect. She was constantly harsh to them and wasn't emotionally present for her children. So while I could have filed for custody, it was quite improbable that I would have gotten the children into my care. Courts typically encourage families to keep together, and in this case, they had already lost their father. Their father had abandoned them, leaving them with only their mother as a biological parent. Naturally, the court would want the family to stay together. I knew that if I filed a petition against her or took legal action against Diana, she would ensure that I never saw them again. She would make certain that she took the kids far away from me. It was already improbable that I would have been able to take kids away from her and obtain full custody, so this would have put them in a dangerous situation. This is why I decided to play it safe by staying in touch with them and being available for them at all times. I'm not sure if it was the correct thing to do in the long term, but at the time, it seemed like the only option. Maybe there were other ways to deal with it, but it was all I could think of, so I did what I believed was right. It was difficult for me, and for years I debated whether I should file for custody or have kids taken away from her and rehomed, but there's no telling what might have occurred, and I figured it was better for kids to stay with their mother and maintain touch with me and my parents than risk anything in this circumstance. I hope this answers the questions most people had for me. Maybe I came across as the evil guy for what I did, but I don't care. I know the kids are doing well in their life, and I did everything I could to keep them happy and safe. I was always there for them, therefore I don't feel guilty about anything. Update 2. It's been a week since Diana's message and I've received a lot of phone calls today from family and people who have spoken with her. They were pointing out my mistakes and scolding me. It was getting really tiresome and I was swamped with work, which is why I hadn't been able to post sooner. But today, I decided I'd had enough. After a brief talk with my nephew and nieces, I decided to finally make a post that shared my side of the story as well as, in some ways, theirs. I don't think anyone in the family realized how much those kids had been through as children. How many taunts they had to endure every day simply because Diana opted to become pregnant early and drop everything for her boyfriend at the time. Even after that, she continued to blame others for her own actions and attempted to appear as if she was doing everything in her ability to do the best for her children. But, in actuality, she was never present for them. Since she was telling everyone that I had stolen her children from her and was now stealing a fortune from her, now that her children were doing well financially, I felt people deserved to know the truth, not just her twisted version of events in which she was the victim rather than the person who tormented everyone. They had already judged me for a variety of reasons since they only knew her side of the story and sympathized with her. But in reality, I deserved to share my side of the story, as did her children. So I typed everything up a few hours ago and published the post. So far, she hasn't said anything to me, and the only texts I've gotten are from relatives who were judging me earlier. They have now abruptly changed their tune and are attempting to apologize for judging me too soon. But frankly, it means nothing to me. I simply wanted them to know the truth. I don't care what they think of me, but it was vital for me to speak the truth and share how Diana handled her children, which is why they are no longer in contact with her. Anyway, now that everything is finished, I am ready to move on from this. Honestly, I don't want anything to do with Diana anymore, and I was perfectly content for the past 6 years when she didn't contact me. I believe the same may be stated for her children as well. I don't understand why she felt the need to create so much drama. If she wanted money, she might have asked for it rather than pretending to want another chance at motherhood. Update 3. It's been a day since I wrote that post. Diana may have woken up today and decided to get back at me. Instead of contacting me directly, she became increasingly dramatic and began commenting on that post, attempting to make it appear as if I was lying. But it was not going to work. Obviously, as soon as she attempted to react, her children began commenting and responding to her, reminding her of particular episodes from their childhood in which she had been cruel to them. That lasted about an hour, and I didn't feel awful about it. Nobody else did, because my nephew, nieces and I were all thoroughly enjoying the process. They were utterly humiliating her, and there was no way she could get out of it since every single lie she tried to say to make me look bad was discovered. I'm glad I chose to do this on the weekend. Otherwise, we might not have been able to respond as swiftly. Anyway, that lasted about an hour, and then she began deleting her comments so that no one could catch her in her falsehoods. However, it was too late because many others had already noticed what was going on in the comments section, and I believe she began to be called out for her actions by others. She started erasing her comments and backtracking on everything she said, and then she blocked me. She also blocked her children. I'm guessing it was her way of surrendering, and I'm pleased she did because she would have lost in a fight with us. We clearly have the upper hand here, morally or otherwise. I believed deleting the comments would be the end of our connection, but she chose to contact me personally as well. She messaged me, saying she hoped I was happy now that I had presented her as the monster and everyone hated her. It was very ironic coming from her, because that was exactly what she was attempting to do to me first. She initiated it, and now when I wanted to return it to her, she is unable to accept it. I don't understand why individuals attempt to dish it out when they know they can't take it in return. Just don't cause any drama if you don't want to be held accountable for the results. Anyway, I disregarded that message, and that's what we're all going to do for the rest of our lives because she's no longer worth our attention. She has proven it. My wife cheated while I grieved my brother's death, blamed me. Then years later, at a wedding, she tried to reconcile, but my new life shocked her. I, 32M, had been with my wife, Teresa, 30F, for 8 years and married for 4. We met at a party hosted by a mutual friend during our sophomore year in college. I was immediately taken to her confident personality and sharp wit. Teresa was studying business, while I was studying engineering. We bonded over our mutual enjoyment of outdoor activities and sampling new foods. Our first date was a disaster. I lost my money and spilled wine on her dress, but Teresa shrugged it off, and we wound up spending hours roaming around campus and talking. I realized she was exceptional right away. Teresa's drive and ambition struck me as our relationship progressed. She hailed from a working-class family and was driven to pursue a good career. I loved how she managed her academics, a part-time job, and internships. Teresa pushed me out of my comfort zone by encouraging me to apply for competitive internships and leadership positions in student organizations. After graduation, we both found nice employment in the city, Teresa with a lighting company, and I at an engineering firm. We moved in together after a year and got engaged soon after. Our wedding was a modest, intimate gathering of close friends and family. Teresa was lovely in her plain white outfit, and I recall feeling like the luckiest man alive. Our first couple years of marriage were great. We both advanced in our careers, which enabled us to travel and enjoy life in the city. We had a wonderful group of friends and frequently hosted dinner parties or game nights at our home. Teresa and I spoke effectively and rarely fought. When we disagreed, we always tried to listen to each other and find a solution. Teresa's independence was one of my favorite aspects of her personality. We both cherished our personal time and hobbies. Teresa enjoyed yoga and painting, while I enjoyed basketball and tinkering with vintage cars. We supported each other's interests and struck a healthy balance between couple and individual activities. Everything changed when Mason, my older brother, was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. Mason and I had always been quite close. He was not only my brother, he was also my best friend, confidant, and role model. Mason was always there for me growing up. He taught me how to ride a bike, assisted me with my homework, and offered advice on everything from school to relationships. When our parents divorced during my adolescence, Mason became my rock. He was attending college at the time, but he called me every day to check in. He even came home on weekends to see whether I was all right. Mason was the one who encouraged me to apply to college and assisted me with moving into my dorm. At my wedding, his best man speech moved everyone to tears. Happy tears, naturally. Mason's diagnosis hit me like a truck. He had always been the picture of health. He ran marathons, ate properly, and never smoked. It appeared so unjust. I recall sitting in the doctor's office with him and his wife Sarah, feeling as if the world was collapsing on us. Since then, I've spent as much time as possible with Mason. I drove him to his chemotherapy appointments, stayed with him in the hospital, and attempted to lift his spirits. Teresa was initially helpful, accompanying me on visits to Mason and assisting Sarah with food and chores. But as the weeks grew into months, Teresa began to protest. She claimed I was spending too much time with Mason and neglected our relationship. I tried to explain how vital it was for me to be there for my brother, but Teresa appeared to resent the time I was away from her. We began bickering more frequently, generally over my schedule or her feeling neglected. I tried to balance time with Mason and Teresa, but it was really difficult. Mason's condition was fast deteriorating, and I wanted to be as present for him as possible. At the same time, I felt awful about not giving Teresa the attention she craved. It was a no-win scenario. Despite rigorous therapy, Mason died 8 months after being diagnosed. I was absolutely devastated. Mason had been such a constant in my life that I couldn't imagine the world without him. The loss devastated me, and I sank into a profound despair. I took a leave of absence from work and spent the majority of my time at home. Some days, I could hardly get out of bed. Everything reminded me of Mason: TV shows we used to watch together, private jokes we shared, and even particular foods he enjoyed. The grief was intense. Teresa attempted to be helpful at first, but her patience ran out quickly. She kept trying to persuade me to get over it and resume our normal social life. She planned events and invited friends over, but I couldn't bring myself to socialize. Teresa seemed to take it personally and accused me of pushing her away. This carried on for around 3 months. I knew Teresa was having a difficult time, but I was doing my best to cope with this enormous loss. I was attending a bereavement counselor and attempting to process my emotions, but healing takes time. Teresa grew increasingly distant and unpleasant. Then one day, I received a call from Liam, Mason's best buddy since boyhood. Liam had been like another brother to me growing up, and he'd been a huge help after Mason's death. However, this call was different. Liam's voice was uncertain when he informed me he saw Teresa at a motel with another man. I did not want to believe it at first. I absolutely believed Teresa and couldn't picture her cheating, but Liam emailed me a photo he had taken, and there was no disputing it. Teresa was in a passionate embrace with a man I didn't recognize, and they were going to enter a hotel room. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. How could Teresa do this to me, especially because I was grieving for my brother? I sat in stunned silence for hours, staring at the snapshot and attempting to make sense of it. When Teresa arrived home that evening, I confronted her. I showed her the photograph and asked for an explanation. She initially denied it, claiming that it was not what it appeared to be. But when I questioned her, she broke down in tears and admitted to having an affair with a coworker for the past 2 months. Teresa's excuses made me feel awful. She claimed she felt lonely and ignored when I was grieving. She complained that I was not providing her needs and that she deserved happiness. She even had the arrogance to claim that I had pushed her to cheat by being emotionally unavailable. I was infuriated and heartbroken. I told Teresa to leave and that I wanted a divorce. She asked me to rethink and give her another opportunity. She screamed and pleaded, claiming it was a mistake and that she still loved me, but I knew I could never trust her again after this betrayal. The next day, Teresa called and texted me nonstop, attempting to explain herself. She claimed I was being harsh and exaggerating. She claimed that I had emotionally abandoned her by initially spending so much time with Mason and then withdrawing when grieving. She tried to blame me for encouraging her to cheat. I'm at a total loss. How could the lady I loved and trusted for 8 years do this to me, especially when I was grieving for my brother? And now she's attempting to blame me. Is it abnormal for me to refuse to even consider reconciliation? I feel like my entire universe has been broken. I keep revisiting our relationship in my head, wondering if there were any indicators I missed. Was Teresa always so selfish, and I just didn't notice, or did Mason's illness and death transform her? I'm doubting everything now. Part of me is upset with myself for not anticipating this. Perhaps if I had worked harder to balance my time between Mason and Teresa, this would not have occurred. But then I remember that a loving partner would have understood and supported me through such a difficult time. I haven't informed many people about Teresa's affair yet. I'm humiliated and don't want to deal with everyone's responses, but I know I'll need help moving forward, especially if I go through with the divorce. I am not sure what to do next. The prospect of going through a divorce while still grieving Mason is daunting, but I also can't imagine remaining with someone who could betray me like this. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Thank you all for your encouraging words and advice. To clarify a few points, Teresa knew Mason and I were close. She'd met him several times and appeared to like him. She was in the hospital with me when he died. During my grief, I never entirely shut Teresa out. We continued to live together, have meals together and so on. I was just not in the mood to go out or be personal. Before confronting Teresa, I performed some research and discovered that the affair had been going on for 4 months, not 2 as she stated. So it began shortly after Mason died. Teresa and I had no major relationship troubles prior to this. We had regular disputes, but nothing significant. She never expressed feeling ignored until Mason became ill. I appreciate everyone's feedback as I absorb this betrayal. I'll give an update whenever I have more information. Update 1. It's been around 2 months since my original post. A lot has transpired, therefore I'd like to provide an update. I filed for divorce soon after learning Teresa's adultery. It was not an easy decision, but I knew I could never trust her again after what she had done. Teresa's reaction to the divorce petition was a mix of outrage and desperate pleas. She kept calling and messaging me, alternately offering emotional apologies and accusing rants. Teresa showed up unannounced at my office. She made a scene in the lobby, crying and imploring me to give her another chance. My coworkers were uncomfortable, and I was mortified. I had to have security escort her out. After that episode, I banned her phone number for my own sanity. Teresa left our house and moved in with her folks. I've been staying in the house, but it feels empty and filled with sad memories. I'm thinking about selling it and finding a new location, but the prospect of going through another major life upheaval is daunting. I learned from common friends that Teresa was telling everyone that I had mentally abused her by abandoning her emotionally. She stated that I had refused to speak or work on our marriage, forcing her to seek consolation elsewhere. It was infuriating to hear these lies circulated about me. Some of our friends have chosen sides in the divorce. The majority have been supportive of me, although a handful believe Teresa's version of events. I've lost a handful of friendships as a result of this, which hurts even more than everything else. I'm trying to concentrate on the folks who have supported me. The divorce process has been messy. Teresa is claiming that she is entitled to half of everything, including Mason's inheritance. My lawyer assures me that she has no legal claim to it, yet she is delaying the process regardless. It feels like a slap in the face that she would attempt to benefit from my brother's death after betraying me. In the aftermath of everything, I've been dealing with a lot of despair and trust issues. Some days, it's difficult to get out of bed. I lost weight since I rarely eat. My performance at work has diminished, but happily, my supervisor has remained understanding. One positive development. I reunited with an old high school classmate, Olivia. We ran into each other at a coffee shop and started conversing. Olivia lost her mother to cancer a few years ago, so she understood exactly what I was going through with Mason. We've been hanging out as friends, and it's great to have someone who gets it. Olivia and I have a lot in common, something I had forgotten about. We were both on the debate team in high school and enjoy watching old movies. She has been introducing me to new music and podcasts, which has provided a wonderful distraction. Olivia doesn't force me to talk about Teresa or the divorce, but she is an excellent listener when I need to vent. Teresa flipped out when she discovered I was spending time with Olivia. She arrived at my house unexpectedly, yelling that I was a hypocrite for moving on so soon while vilifying her. She accused me of having an affair with Olivia, which is completely false. I had to threaten to call the cops before she left. The situation has been a nightmare, but I'm taking things one day at a time. I'm working on healing and discovering who I am outside of my connection with Teresa. I appreciate my family and friends' support during this trying time. I've been attempting to honor Mason's memory in constructive ways. I donated to the cancer facility where he was treated and have been volunteering whenever I can. Mason's wife, Sarah, and their children have been an excellent source of support. We have dinner together frequently, and it's helpful to talk about Mason with others who care about him as much as I do. There are still times when I miss Teresa and the life we shared, but then I remember her betrayal and how she has acted after I discovered the truth. It helps to emphasize that I'm making the correct decision by terminating the marriage. I'm not ready to consider dating again. The idea of putting myself out there and risking another heartbreak is daunting. For the time being, my primary emphasis is on reconstructing my life and recuperating from everything that has occurred. I will provide another update after the divorce is official. Thank you again to everyone who has expressed kindness and advice. It truly helps to know that I'm not alone in this. Update 2. It has been around 6 months since my last update. I was relieved when the divorce was finally finalized last week. Teresa fought me every step of the way, attempting to prolong the process and collect more money. In the end, we split our joint assets 50-50, and she did not receive any of my Mason inheritance. Teresa returned to my office the day after her divorce became final. She was crying and begging me to reconsider, claiming she had made a terrible mistake but still loved me. I politely but firmly informed her that it was finished and requested her to leave. She refused, raising a commotion, and security had to remove her out. It was humiliating, so I took the rest of the day off work. My employer summoned me to his office the next day. I was concerned that he would be disturbed by the disruption, but he was actually very understanding. He mentioned that he had a messy divorce years ago and offered me some time off if I needed it. I was appreciative for his help and understanding. On a good note, Olivia has been doing well. What began as a friendship has gradually grown into something more. We've been officially dating for approximately 2 months now. Olivia is compassionate, sympathetic, and patient with me while I work through my trust difficulties. She encourages me to talk about Mason and never makes me feel awful for continuing to grieve. Olivia and I have been taking it slowly, which I love. We enjoy cooking together, taking long walks, and binge-watching TV shows. She's been assisting me in rediscovering old hobbies that I had abandoned throughout my marriage, such as playing guitar and photography. I've also focused on myself. I joined a gym, began learning guitar, and have traveled extensively. It is fantastic to rediscover who I am as a person. I went on a solo excursion to the mountains, which I had always wanted to do but Teresa was not interested in. It was pleasant to be alone with my thoughts and environment. Teresa continues to disparage me to anyone who will listen. She has told common acquaintances that I'm cold and unfeeling, that I never truly loved her, and that Olivia and I must have had an affair prior to our divorce. It's frustrating, but I'm trying not to get involved in her drama. I have begun spending more time with Mason's family. His children are growing up so quickly, and it's bittersweet to watch them hit milestones that Mason isn't present for. We've developed a ritual of having Sunday dinners together, telling tales about Mason and keeping his memory alive. Mason would have celebrated his birthday last month. It was a difficult day, but Olivia recommended we do something to honor Dad. We ended up organizing a modest charity race in Mason's honor, with funds benefiting cancer research. It felt amazing to turn my grief into something positive. Overall, I'm a lot better off than I was a year ago. I still miss Mason deeply, but the pain is not as intense. I am cautiously optimistic about my future with Olivia, and I'm pleased of myself for holding firm and not allowing Teresa to mislead me into reconciling. There are still difficult days, of course. Sometimes I wake up angry at Teresa for abandoning our marriage. Other times, I miss the future we envisioned together. But I'm learning to sit with these emotions without allowing them to overwhelm me. Thank you again to everyone in our community for their support. It helped me get through some difficult times. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm feeling optimistic for the first time in a long time. Update 3. It's been almost a year since my previous update. Life has returned to normal, and I'd want to express my last opinions on the matter. Olivia and I are still together and going strong. We just moved in together and adopted a dog. She's been a tremendous help through everything. I still have moments of insecurity and doubt, but Olivia is always kind and supportive. Our relationship isn't perfect, we've had our share of arguments and challenges, but we always try to talk freely and work through problems together. It's wonderful to be around someone who values honesty and mutual respect. I met Teresa at a mutual friend's wedding a few months ago. It was awkward, but we managed to remain cordial. She apologized again for her behavior during our divorce and stated that she was in therapy, working on herself. I wished her well but made it obvious that I was not interested in rekindling any kind of relationship, including friendship. Seeing Teresa evoked a variety of feelings. Part of me was outraged again, remembering her betrayal and the suffering she caused, but I also felt a sense of closure. Talking to her made me realize how much I'd grown and healed in the last few years. The pain over Mason is coming in waves now. Some days are more difficult than others, particularly around his birthday and the anniversary of his death, but I've discovered healthy methods to cope and celebrate his memory. I volunteer at the hospital where he was treated and have grown close to his wife and children. Mason's oldest son at 14 has been struggling lately. He's been acting out at school and is dealing with rage issues. I've been spending more time with him, taking him to basketball games and simply being there to talk. It feels amazing to be there for him in the same way Mason has always been for me. Olivia and I have discussed our future together. We are not in a rush to marry, but we both see this as a long-term relationship. We've spoken about having kids eventually, something I never imagined I'd desire after what happened with Teresa. It's hard to think of opening my heart again, but Olivia makes me feel protected. Work is going great. I was promoted a few months ago, which has been both exhilarating and challenging. The new work requires more travel, which has been difficult for Olivia and me, but we're figuring out how to balance our time together with our respective activities. I'm attempting to reconnect with past hobbies and interests. I joined a local amateur baseball league, which I enjoyed in college but gave up when life became busy. It's been exciting to get back on the field and meet new people. Olivia attends my sports whenever she can, cheering me on from the stands. Looking back, I see how toxic my relationship with Teresa had been, even before the adultery. We had grown apart, but we were both afraid to accept it. While I will never excuse her affair, I have accepted what happened and am looking ahead. There are still instances when I think, what if? What if Mason didn't get sick? What if I had noticed Teresa moving away sooner? What if I'd done things differently? But I am learning to let go of such thoughts and concentrate on the present. I am not the same person I was when I wrote the first post 2 years ago. The anguish and betrayal transformed me, but not all of the changes were negative. I've learned a lot about myself, resilience, and what I truly want from a spouse and in life. To anyone going through a similar situation, it does get better. Take the time to heal, surround yourself with supporting friends, and don't be scared to start afresh. You deserve happiness and someone who actually appreciates you. This will be my final update on this storyline. Thank you again for your kindness and encouragement over the last few years. It made a huge impact during the worst periods. I am looking forward to the future, whatever it may hold. My spiteful sister-in-law accused me of stealing her diamond ring, but when this was revealed, she wasn't ready for the shock. I, 29F, have been married to Shane, 31M, for 5 years. We have a solid connection and a comfortable lifestyle. Shane has a sister, Tori, 33, who has been married to Mike, 35, for 8 years. Tori and I never really got along. Tori appeared to dislike me ever since Shane introduced me to his family. At first, I assumed it was simply because she was protective of her brother. But as time passed, I understood there was more to it. I was raised in a middle-class family. My parents worked hard to support me and my siblings. We never had luxuries, but we always had what we needed. I went to college on scholarships and worked part-time jobs to cover my expenditures. Following college, I took a job at a technology company and worked my way up. Tori, on the other hand, hailed from an affluent household. She never had to worry about money and received everything she desired. She attended an expensive private college before marrying Mike, who was also from a wealthy background. Tori didn't work and spent her time shopping, visiting spas, and attending social gatherings. When Shane and I began dating, Tori made it apparent that she did not think I was suitable for her brother. She'd make snarky remarks about my clothing, employment, and background. Despite the fact that Shane was seeing me, she was constantly trying to match him up with her wealthy friends. Despite Tori's attitude, Shane and I married. Our wedding was simple yet gorgeous. We paid for it ourselves and held a small ceremony for close friends and relatives. Tori complained about everything at the wedding, including the food and decor. She even donned a white outfit, which I chose to overlook to avoid the controversy. Shane's career skyrocketed following our marriage. He was promoted numerous times and began earning a decent salary. We were able to buy a wonderful home and go on vacation. This seemed to aggravate Tori's jealousy. She was constantly comparing our life to hers, always attempting to outdo us. Last month, Shane's parents invited the entire family to spend the weekend at their lake house. I didn't want to go because of Tori, but Shane persuaded me that it would be beneficial for family bonding. The first day went fine. We all arrived on Friday evening and dined together. Tori rarely spoke to me, which was okay with me. On Saturday morning, we had a swim in the lake. After lunch, Tori recommended we all play board games. Tori continued to show off her beautiful diamond ring while we were playing. She made a great deal about how pricey it was and how her father had surprised her with it on their anniversary. I complimented the ring politely, but Tori simply rolled her eyes. Later that afternoon, I decided to have a nap. I was fatigued after driving and swimming. I walked to the guest room Shane and I stayed in and fell asleep. I awoke about an hour later to shouting. I walked downstairs and discovered Tori screaming and crying. She yelled that her diamond ring was missing. Everyone was attempting to calm her down and help her find it. Tori was turning the living room upside down, tossing cushions and peering beneath furniture. Tori then pointed at me and cried that I had taken her ring. She claimed I was envious of her ring and wanted it for myself. I was astonished and rejected it right away. Shane defended me, stating that I would never do such a thing. Tori stated that I was the only one who had been alone in the house while everyone else went outdoors. She insisted that I empty my pockets and show her my baggage. I felt ashamed, but I did everything she wanted to establish my innocence. The ring was not present, but Tori was dissatisfied. To my dismay, Mike chimed in and accused me of hiding the ring somewhere. He stated I must have done it out of envy and recommended we check our room. I could not believe what was happening. I looked to Shane's parents for help, but they were apprehensive. Shane's father suggested that we all search the house thoroughly. We looked everywhere for hours and couldn't find the ring. As time passed, I noticed uncertainty creeping into everyone's eyes. Even Shane's mother, who had always been friendly to me, gave me skeptical looks. By dinner time, the mood was terrible. Tori was still crying, and Mike was soothing her while staring at me. Shane's cousins were whispering amongst themselves, and I could sense their accusing eyes. The breaking point came when Shane's father pulled him aside. I overheard him instructing Shane to man up and make me return the ring or pay for it. He claimed the ring was worth hundreds of dollars and Tori was upset. Shane lost his temper. He yelled at his father, stating he couldn't believe his own family would accuse him without evidence. He exclaimed that I was innocent and Tori had probably misplaced the ring. This resulted in a heated argument, with everyone taking sides. I felt terrible. I couldn't believe what was occurring. My husband's family treated me like a criminal even though I had never stolen anything in my life. Shane grabbed my hand in the middle of our quarrel and told me we were leaving. He informed his family that he was upset with them for leaping to conclusions and mistreating me. We packed our stuff quickly and went, despite his parents' objections. Shane was seething as he drove home. He repeatedly apologized to me, claiming he couldn't believe his family would do this. I was astonished and didn't know what to say. I felt bad for fostering this schism in Shane's family, even though I knew I had done nothing wrong. When we arrived home, Shane's phone was swamped with messages from his relatives. Tori demanded we pay for the ring. Mike had sent me a lengthy text accusing me of wrecking their lives via jealousy. Shane's parents asked him to be reasonable and return to work things out. Shane blocked all of their numbers that night. He said he didn't want to speak with any of them until they apologized to me, but I could tell how much this was hurting him. He adored his family, and this split was tearing him apart. A week has gone by, but the situation has not improved. Tori has been posting on social media about how I took her valuable anniversary gift. Some of Shane's extended family members have contacted us, encouraging us to do the right thing and pay for the ring to maintain peace. I am at a loss. I know I didn't take the ring, but I can't prove it. Shane trusts me, but I can see the toll it is having on him. He has lost weight and is not sleeping properly. He's even thinking about changing careers so we can relocate to another place and escape all of this stress. Part of me wonders if we should just pay for the ring to put this all behind us, but it's a lot of money, and more importantly, it would be admitting to something I didn't do. I'm afraid if we give in now, Tori will keep this over my head forever. I never wanted to come between Shane and his family. Regardless of our differences, I hope Tori and I would eventually get along. Now it appears that will never happen. I do not know what to do. Should I maintain my innocence, even if it means Shane loses his family? Should we pay for the ring to maintain peace? How can I prove I didn't steal something when there is no evidence either way? This entire affair has been a nightmare. I've lost sleep, can't concentrate at work, and am constantly anxious. Shane swears he'll always support me, but I can tell this is causing him pain as well. So Reddit, should I admit to stealing a ring that I did not take or pay for? How would you handle my situation? How can I resolve this situation without jeopardizing my integrity? Update. It's been 3 months since my previous post, and a lot has happened. I never anticipated things to turn out the way they did, but I'm glad the truth is now out. 2 weeks after the incident at the lake house, Leah, Shane's cousin, called me. She stated that she had some information about Tori's missing ring and wanted to meet me in person. I was hesitant at first, but Leah argued that it was necessary. The following day, we met in a small cafe. Leah appeared anxious and kept looking around, as if she was frightened someone would overhear us. She informed me that she had heard something unexpected from Angela, Ethan's girlfriend. Ethan was Mike's best friend. Angela told Leah that Mike had removed Tori's ring. Mike and Ethan had apparently entered into a business deal with a loan shark. They borrowed a significant quantity of money, but instead of investing it, they used it all to gamble and party in Las Vegas. When it came time to repay the debt, they were broke. In desperation, Mike took Tori's ring and sold it to help pay off the debt. He then used the family gathering to stage the ring's disappearance and blamed me. I was stunned. I couldn't believe what I heard. Part of me was happy that I wasn't insane and hadn't taken the ring, but another part of me was angry and upset that Mike would do this to his own wife and then blame me for it. Leah stated that she did not know what to do with this information. She felt bad for keeping it a secret, but she was frightened of causing additional family problems. I thanked her for informing me and told her that I would handle it responsibly. When I arrived home, I told Shane exactly what Leah had said. At first, he was skeptical. He couldn't believe his brother-in-law would do anything like this, but as we discussed it, things began to make sense. We remembered Mike's uneasy demeanor throughout the ring incident and how quick he was to accuse me. Shane decided to do some digging. He began by contacting some of Mike's old college pals and discovered that Mike had a gambling history that he had kept hidden from his family. Mike's acquaintances reported that he had recently been in financial problems. Then Shane hired a private detective. It took some time, but the PI eventually tracked down the loan shark from whom Mike had borrowed money. The man acknowledged that Mike and Ethan had taken out a loan and had recently made a partial repayment with a diamond ring. Shane was infuriated. He wanted to face Mike right away, but I advised him to acquire additional proof first. We didn't want this to become another situation in which our word was against theirs. Shane labored tirelessly for weeks to develop a case. He obtained bank statements that showed big transactions from Mike and Tori's joint account around the time of their Las Vegas trip. He discovered credit card statements containing charges from casinos. He even obtained security camera footage from a pawn shop showing Mike selling the ring. Shane convened a family meeting after we had collected all of the evidence. He assured everyone that they were going to talk about the ring issue and try to move ahead as a family. Tori and Mike consented, possibly believing it was an opportunity for me to finally confess. I was quite nervous on the day of the meeting. Shane's parents hosted it in their home. When we arrived, everyone was already present. Tori gave me a chilly glance, while Mike avoided eye contact entirely. Shane began by thanking everyone for coming. He stated that the ring event had created a great deal of pain in the family, and it was time to clear the air. Then he dropped the bombshell. He knew exactly what had happened to the ring. The room became silent. Tori looked perplexed, as Mike turned pale. Shane then proceeded to put forth all of the evidence we had collected. He handed them the bank statements, credit card bills, and pawnshop film. He even had Ethan on speakerphone and reluctantly corroborated the entire tale. As Shane spoke, the expressions on everyone's faces changed: shock, astonishment, and finally rage. Tori fell into tears and asked Mike if it was true. Mike broke down and confessed everything. He said he never intended for things to get this far, and he was going to find a way to get the ring returned. Tori was devastated. She couldn't believe Mike stole her ring and then blamed an innocent person. Shane's parents were surprised and ashamed. They apologized profusely for questioning me. Mike left the house in humiliation after the encounter, while Tori remained behind, too unhappy to join him. Shane's father hugged me and apologized for telling Shane to make me pay for the ring. Shane's mother was in tears, begging for my forgiveness. In the days that followed, I got calls and texts from several family members. They all apologized for believing I was capable of stealing and for treating me poorly. Some others brought flowers or gift baskets as peace gestures. Tori called me a week after our meeting. She apologized for blaming me and for all of the hurtful things she had said and done over the years. She revealed that she was always envious of me and my friendship with Shane. She announced that she was seeking for divorce from Mike and asked if we could start afresh. I was cautious at first, but I could detect genuine guilt in her voice. I told her I forgive her, but it would take time to regain trust. She understood and expressed her willingness to put in the effort. Mike moved out of their home and into a modest apartment. When his boss discovered the gambling and loan sharking, he was fired. Last I heard, he was going to Gamblers Anonymous sessions and trying to change his life. Shane and I had lengthy discussions about all that had happened. He felt bad about not believing in me more passionately from the start. I informed him that I realized how terrible the situation had been and that I valued his assistance throughout. We also talked about how we would handle our relationship with his family going ahead. We decided that while we would attempt to preserve positive ties, we would be more cautious about becoming involved in family issues in the future. The entire event drew Shane and I closer together. We discovered how strong our friendship was and how we could count on each other even when others doubted us. It also made us understand the value of trust and honesty in a partnership. Tori stuck to her word about trying to better our friendship. She began inviting me for coffee or lunch, just the two of us. At first, our chats were awkward and stiff, but we eventually discovered common ground. She spoke openly about her vulnerabilities and the pressure she faced growing up in a rich family. I told anecdotes of my own challenges and how I started my career from nothing. Things gradually began to shift. Tori stopped making nasty remarks at family events or attempting to outdo me. Instead, she was nice and even defended me when some of my more distant relatives mentioned the ring incident. Shane's parents went out of their way to make me feel comfortable and included. They would frequently call to check on me and ask us over for dinner. Shane's father even sought my guidance on some business things, claiming he valued my opinion. The ring was never recovered. We found out the facts after the loan shark had already sold it. Tori was disappointed at losing her father's present, but she claimed the event taught her that worldly possessions were less essential than trust and family. Leah, the cousin who initially informed me of Mike's conduct, became a good friend. She expressed admiration for how I handled the problem and wished she had been bold enough to speak up sooner. We began having frequent girls' nights out with some of our other cousins. The incident also influenced how I perceived myself. I realized that I had always felt nervous around Shane's family because of my history. But standing up for myself and revealing the truth gave me greater confidence. I knew I had earned my place in the family through my own efforts, not because of wealth or prestige. Shane and I had a lengthy talk about boundaries and family dynamics. We agreed that, while we would retain contacts with his family, we would be more aggressive about our own needs and boundaries. We also decided to begin seeing a couples therapist to work through some of the remaining stress from the entire experience. In an unexpected turn of events, Shane's company offered him a promotion that required us to relocate to another state. After considerable contemplation, we decided to take it. We saw it as an opportunity for a new beginning away from the lingering unpleasantness of the ring affair. We received different reactions from our relatives when we announced our decision. Some were saddened to see us leave, while others recognized our need for space. Tori, in particular, appeared unhappy, but stated that she supported our decision. She pledged to continue working on our relationship long distance. As we packed up our house and prepared to leave, I thought about everything that had happened: the false charge, the family turmoil, and the discovery of the truth. It all appeared strange. I never knew that a misplaced ring could cause so much havoc while also leading to so much personal progress. I learned significant lessons about advocating for yourself, gathering facts before making accusations, and the power of forgiveness. I also learned that family dynamics are complex and that it is acceptable to establish limits, even with kin. Shane and I are enthusiastic for our new journey in a new city. We're excited to start a new life free of the shadows of previous family dramas. We intend to visit during the holidays and stay in touch, but we also want to build our own customs and social circle. Tori and I had a rather emotional last talk before the relocation. She thanked me for giving her a second chance and promised to be a better sister-in-law and friend. She even joked about visiting us in our new city to show that she could have fun without her nice clothes and pricey jewelry. Looking back, I could not have imagined how things would turn out when I published my first post. Life has a tendency of shocking us, and the truth can be stranger than fiction. While I wouldn't wish the experience on anyone, I am happy for the growth and adjustments it has brought to my life and relationships. I discovered that a student used sign language to discuss breaking into my home and had been emotionally and sexually assaulted. I'm gonna try to keep this as short as possible. I'm not sure if this is the right place for this story, but I need to tell someone this story. English is not my first language. I'm an art teacher in the Netherlands. I have an amazing class with 21 kids. The majority of them are really sweet, but there's this one kid, let's call her Jane. She has autism and she seems to like me a little too much. She would do her best to be extra nice to me and would defend me whenever one of her other classmates weren't listening or being rude. As far as I know, she doesn't do this with her other teachers. She has a friend group of about 3 others which she always sits with, and whenever they talk there is always one of them that looks at me. It gives me the feeling that they are talking about me, which is kinda creepy, but I guess as a teacher you can expect it. I have always kind of got the feeling that Jane likes me. For Valentine's Day she bought a rose for me. Anonymous, but I know it was her because of the handwriting on the card. On Monday, she was always earlier to class than the rest, 5 minutes earlier than class started, and she would be slow with making her work on purpose so she could stay after class with me. She would also always tell me stories about things at home that she doesn't like about her family and other stuff. She would also very often come into class with bruises and other injuries, but that might be for another story, and she would just be overly nice to me. I would never call her out on any of it because I thought that maybe I was just delusional and it was just her being different, but here comes the actual part on why I'm writing. Last week I was teaching them and Jane and her friends were speaking in sign language. Usually they would just be talking, but Jane was sitting alone on the other side of the classroom because she and her friends were being quite annoying. I know sign language because my brother is deaf, but I never told the class this so they didn't know. Apparently Jane and her friends were talking about me, how Jane wanted to find out where I lived, she does know the town I live in, and wanted to break into my home and do things to me. I can't really go into detail, but that's one thing I heard. I also found out she's stalking me on my way from work to the bus stop and on social media. She also fantasizes about me and I heard many other things that I can't really say here. I haven't gone to work since because I don't think I can work at that school anymore. I feel bad for Jane that she doesn't see me in class anymore, but I don't want to risk anything. What do I do? Should I go back? I have no idea why I'm even posting here. I'm just so creeped out and I have no idea what to do. Edit. I have seen people complain about my spelling and some other things. I'm 21, Jane is 12. I was writing this on my break with my other job, so that's why a lot of things are a little weirdly written. I have also never posted on Reddit before, so that's also why. Edit 2. I'm gonna talk with her tomorrow at school. Edit 3. No, I'm not gonna talk to her alone. I'm asking 2 others to join us. I could update you all tomorrow. But seeing as many people refuse to believe that my story is true, I'm not sure if I'm gonna do that. I'd rather not get more hate. Last edit for now. Best I can do is update in 2 days. Tomorrow I'm gonna talk with Jane. Thanks to everyone. Relevant comments. If this is real, then you have an obligation to report it and the bruises. I have reported things that have happened to Jane's mentor. Let's just say that her mentor isn't exactly the best person ever. I am reporting it, but Jane's mentor doesn't really care for her students and refuses to do anything. From OOP, not trying to be rude, but I didn't say I was a male teacher. I'm a woman. Update. Hi everyone, here is the update. Once again, thanks to all the support. This is written late at night and I'm tired, so it's once again very poorly written, but I will try my best. So I talked with Jane, her mentor, and someone else from school. I talked with them alone before we talked with Jane so they would understand the situation better. Jane's mentor was the one to talk the most because I wasn't sure what to say, but when Jane's mentor, let's just call her Maya, asked why Jane did all of this, Jane started crying and didn't want to talk anymore. Maya wanted me to leave because she believed Jane didn't want to talk because I was there, so I left. A little bit later I was called by Maya. She wanted me to come and talk about what happened and what Jane told her. Like a lot of you already thought, Jane had a rough time at home and was indeed being abused, not physically by her parents but emotionally. Her parents constantly favored her younger sisters over her and, in Jane's words, don't care about her. Her older sister would regularly bring multiple boys home while babysitting Jane and her sisters, which is probably one of the things Jane learned about sexual stuff. A lot of others in the comments thought Jane was being sexually abused at home, but that's not what is going on. Jane told Maya that her other classmate, Luca, editor's note, I chose a gender-neutral name as we do not know anything else about this person, who is 2 years older, due to having to repeat a year, sexually abuses Jane. Jane says that Luca claims that this is what love is, and that's why Jane thought that it was okay to say those things about me because she loves me. Jane explained to Maya that she didn't mean it like that and that she wouldn't want to hurt me. Apparently Jane had the feeling that she was in love with me and told this to her friends. They taught her that the things she said, like stalking me and potentially breaking into my house, are part of being in love, and that's why she did it. I saw another comment saying that Jane acts like this towards me because I'm one of the few nice people in her life. I'm not sure. Jane did not say anything that would prove that, although I think that's probably what's going on and that's why she thinks she's in love with me. I really can't think of any other reason why a 12-year-old would like me. This is all I know now. All happened today, although I don't think I'm gonna get more updates on the situation. Maya is, like I mentioned in a comment, not one of the best people ever. So I doubt she will involve me further, but if everything Jane says is true, I hope she gets some help and possibly a new home. I would love to update further, but that's only if I get updates myself. Have a good night to everyone still awake. Am I the asshole for not trying harder to inform my ex about our son's passing? Now I'm being accused of hiding it out of spite. I apologize in advance for any formatting issues as I'm on my phone, and this is a throwaway account since my ex follows my main one. My partner and I, both 28 at the time, had been together for 4 years when I found out I was pregnant. Initially, I didn't want to go through with the pregnancy because my job had promising opportunities for advancement, but after many discussions, we decided to have the baby. At around 20 weeks, just after finding out the baby's gender, my partner disappeared. He stopped answering calls and messages, and I eventually found out through his mother that he had moved back in with her, feeling overwhelmed by the situation. Although he continued to contribute financially by transferring his share of the bills, I had no contact with him. I even tried visiting him, but there was no response. By the time I was 27 weeks along, I gave up trying to reach out and accepted the reality of becoming a single mother. I prepared for the baby on my own, buying everything necessary. At 31 weeks, I started experiencing pain but dismissed it as Braxton Hicks contractions. Shortly before 32 weeks, my water broke and I went into labor. My baby was born prematurely and was immediately taken to the NICU. I tried to contact my ex and his mother again, but there was no response. Less than a week later, my son passed away due to complications from his early birth. Once more, I attempted to reach my ex and his mother, leaving voicemails and messages, but still heard nothing. The following weeks were a blur as my parents helped me arrange the funeral. They also tried to contact my ex and his family without success. Eventually, I stopped trying. I felt broken and couldn't bear the weight of trying to reach out any longer. After the funeral, I told my family not to bother with any further attempts. 5 months after our son's birth and death, my ex suddenly appeared at my flat. He let himself in while I was out, and when I returned, he immediately became hostile, demanding to see our son. When I told him what had happened, he became extremely upset and stormed out. Shortly after, his mother and other family members bombarded me with angry calls and messages, accusing me of deliberately withholding the news of our son's death out of spite. It has been nearly 3 weeks since this confrontation, and they continue to treat me horribly. When I confided in my sister, she said that while she understands I was going through a lot, she feels that I could have tried harder to inform them. This comment has left me questioning whether I should have done more. Did I truly not do enough? Was I wrong to stop trying? I lost my son too and was struggling immensely. I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong here. Edit. Thank you all so much for your responses. I'm sorry I haven't replied to any, but reading them has been overwhelming. Writing this out and reliving the experience has been incredibly hard. I'm going to drink some wine, read your kind words, and cry myself to sleep. I've recently moved into a new flat, and thankfully, my dad has covered the cost of a private therapist who I see regularly. Second edit. I didn't expect this post to get so much attention, but if you happen to read this, Lewis, read it carefully, then leave me alone. I'm going to show my therapist this post and discuss it with her. I appreciate all of your support, even though it made me cry a lot. I'm signing off for now, but thank you again. Update post. 2.5 months later. The original post was locked, but I've received messages asking how I'm doing, so before I close this account, I wanted to let everyone know that I'm alright. The move went smoothly, and I'm far enough away that there's no risk of running into my ex or his family. I've changed my number and deleted all social media, so I haven't heard from them in about 6 weeks. My sister apologized for her earlier comments, but our relationship isn't quite the same. I'm still in therapy and trying to move forward. I visit my son's grave when I can, and thankfully, my ex and his family don't know where it is, so I can do so in peace. Thank you all for your support. I've found myself revisiting the previous post many times over the last few months, and it has helped more than I can express. This is my final update, and I'm leaving this account now, but I want to say thank you again. Relevant comments. When asked to clarify what her sister said or was thinking, my dad was very upset when he found out what my sister said to me. She claimed she didn't realize how much effort we had put into contacting my ex and thought I had just given up like when I was pregnant. However, this seems like an excuse because she was aware of our attempts. Although her apology seemed genuine, and she has since criticized how my ex and his family have behaved, our relationship remains strained. Final update. 8 months later. I had forgotten about Reddit until I was clearing out some apps for phone space, so I thought I'd give one final update before saying goodbye. I wish I could say everything is amazing now, new job, new partner and all that. But it's nothing quite that exciting. I moved into my new flat last year and it's nice, though I had forgotten how expensive it is to live alone. I'm managing though. I did get a new job, similar pay and role to the old one, but my ex doesn't know where it is. There was no dramatic encounter or anything. I just wanted a fresh start along with my new home. As for dating, I haven't felt ready to get back into it yet. I'm taking things one step at a time. My relationship with my sister remains limited, LC. Although she apologized for what she said, I still feel hurt, especially knowing she occasionally still talks to my ex. It's not some dramatic revelation, she just chats with him if they bump into each other, but it still stings after everything that happened. I'm still in therapy and even doubled the length of my sessions around the 1-year anniversary of my son's passing. Thankfully, my ex didn't show up at his grave when I visited, or at least not when I was there. That visit was incredibly painful, and I spent several days afterward just crying and drinking. It was a tough time. My dad has been my rock throughout all of this. I'm still paying him back for all the support he's given me, though he waves it off whenever I mention it. We've developed a lovely Sunday morning routine of drinking tea, catching up and maybe watching some F1 together. It's simple, but it means the world to me. Overall, life is calm, which is a relief. No drama, no contact from my ex or his family, and no major life changes, just one foot in front of the other. I reread everything I posted last year and revisited many of the comments, and I want to say thank you again. I was in a really dark place, and it was hard to see that I wasn't the villain in this story. A mix of therapy and all the comments helped me come to terms with that. So thank you all. This is my final goodbye. Take care, everyone. My neglectful dad and scheming stepmom tried to steal my home for my spoiled pregnant stepsister, but karma just hit them hard. Recently learning how much I, M34, make, my dad, M62, is miserably self-centered. Generally missing. Unbelievably, he chose to evict me from my own house, all in the name of family. My stepsister and tiny gem, Ash, F29, who can do nothing wrong, has miraculously become pregnant. She struggles to find herself a place to stay as her highly self-reliant aspirations are those of an escort and an OnlyFans model. Now dad wants everything fixed, and I'm the fixer. I regretfully had to part from my house and my hard-earned money with this woman since she made all the wrong decisions. The man my dad openly turned off as a duty several times is me. Ever since he learned about my new residence, job, and shockingly low income though, he has become somewhat sensitive about our shared blood. Although I'm not thrilled with him constantly telling me who my father is, he also wants to deepen the ties I have with his wife and her daughter. She is my dad's child as well, but I was banished far too early to establish any type of relationship with the woman. I'm glad I didn't since I would have been somewhat let down. I simply want to remind everyone before you all start that I'm here to let out my feelings. I have ideas, opinions and sentiments to put down. Though you may disagree and they might not sound good to you, I am just letting you know regardless since, to be honest, I have no one else to tell. Now let me present my half-sister Ash, short Ashlyn. She is literally making her dad proud. She is about 5 years younger than I am. Dad is delusional as this woman is out there only serving as an escort, sleeping with a bunch of OnlyFans, and my father calls her his pride. You did really read correctly. I suppose he is not familiar with the major deal. Someone is going to tell him. Though I'm not too conservative, I try to concentrate on my morals and profession. When I have the time to get to know them better, I court women. There is occasionally a spark, but other elements also play a role including vast distance and availability problems. Other times, one finds absolutely no understanding. I try not to spend random nights sleeping with anyone. I ought to wait for the proper woman. I get sick looking at a large body count. Guys displaying it like a medal is repulsive. I'm not sure why. Still, this is what I live by in my own life. Unfortunately, my sister holds the reverse view. She most certainly no longer counts her physical partners. She is now an escort, which personally repels me. Moreover, it is quite harmful as well. Certain guys enjoy performing odd activities for escorts. I have no idea how someone would view working like that as being acceptable. She then posts indecent movies and pictures of herself on the internet in order to profit from it, but she finds little success there. She most likely lacks knowledge on how to start the traffic, but for whatever reason it is a flop. From what sources am I aware of this? Here is an awkward story. My friend mentioned it to me. Ash asked him if he wanted to have fun after texting him once following their drink meeting. Hearing the narrative, I had already warmed up a little when the man left with my sister, but, he said it was only after he realized she was my sister. He told me she had emailed him the URL to her page, and he showed me too. I'm not sure whether he is speaking the truth. She breaks constantly and begs dad for money, hence I believe she isn't doing very well. I never told dad either. I couldn't even bring myself to question her about it straight. I observed her answering a call then seated in the car with an old man another time. He left her flowers and headed off. She would sneak back into the house at strange hours through the window. This became evident when I used to return home over holidays from college. Though I'm not sure if she is still at it, I do not want to be involved in any of it. I'm glad about having a respectable post where I work. At last, I haven't lived much with the new family since my dad was disturbed enough to send me away any opportunity he could have. But I have seen Ash close enough to claim she follows her mother, Marissa, F58. Marissa thought she was really the icon in her heyday. She was really beautiful to men like my dad and used to be a flight attendant. If you know what I mean, she is now a regular botched face Karen. She runs the sort of neighborhood childcare and has hands like those of a claw, nails longer than her lipstick. Odd how parents would leave their children with someone like that. She could point out a child's eye with such long nails. She is, nevertheless, exactly as pokey as her nails. She loves to create trouble in other people's life and opinions about anything. She has more plastic in her body than the sea and a quite terrible voice. She is as real as phony leather. She affects Dad for the worst. She didn't want to raise a child that wasn't her own, hence I think she was a big factor in my dad not thinking twice before sending me 8 years to boarding school. Let me then introduce you to my dad. Actually, he is more the main cause of all this. Having lived a complete life, he believes anything he does in life is justified even if it is far, far from it since he understands better. He laments having me since I'm not like him. Thank you God, I am not. My mother was a formidable woman. She looked after my dad well and clearly knew her priorities, yet they clashed. I should never forget that she used to tell me Dad was just a different person, not a horrible one. He will always be my dad regardless of what happens. She was a good person though. She didn't want to contaminate my views against my father. He was, definitely, as intolerable to her as he is now. Few months later, they split and divorced. 4 years old at the time. 2 months after the divorce, my dad then wed Marissa. When I reached 5, they had Ash. Later, my mother passed away in a car accident. She was out to come pick me from school, so I can't forget that. She had always been on time. She just missed 10 minutes once. Though it seemed to me like an hour, it was only 10 minutes. A drunk hit her at a crossroads. He made it, she did not. A few years ago he got a DUI, and I was left alone permanently. I waited in the school. It took them 2 hours to arrive to pick me up. My dad had come, hence I was misled and puzzled. His irritation when he turned to dead-faced Marissa and asked what they should do about me will never fade. She answered, "Your kid, your problem. Specifically, Dad. You cannot now come and tell me I will have to look after your spoiled child. At last I have steady work and oversee some side enterprises. Since I turned 15, I have been earning and have worked quite hard. I started boarding school, then moved to college, only visiting over the holidays, so I started living alone 8 years ago. I recently bought a property after working very hard to reach where I am. This is a wonderful modest house, far better than the apartment I had with buddies. I felt I would never be able to reach this life aim. Actually, I just moved in last month. Although I might not like my family much, fundamental politeness was to involve them in a moment this significant, thus I asked them to the housewarming as well. Watching his response was quite depressing. As he inquired about the furniture, the architect and the interior designer, he seemed jealous, to be honest, a bit annoyed. When I provided him what I believed was sufficient information, he answered with taunts such as, "I wouldn't know, you never bothered telling me," trying to get attention and clearly show our weak connection in front of friends and business associates, including my boss. 1 week went by and he called me. I had an intricate job to oversee while at work. I accepted since he mentioned he needed to meet urgently. When I got home, Marissa and puffy, red-eyed Ash were glaring from the living room and I avoided her. Dad was in the kitchen pulling beers from the refrigerator. He gave me one, and I graciously turned him down fearing what he might say. When I asked him what he wanted from me, he furrowed his eyebrows and answered another question, asking whether I had lately started complaining about us. Not sure what he was getting at, I scowled in uncertainty. He invited me to hang in the living room with Ash and Marissa. I nodded and turned to settle on a couch across from the two. Ash folded her arms. Marissa rolled her eyes. Dad came in and sat with them facing me. Leaving his beer bottle on the sofa table, he leaned back. Then he wanted to know whether I was blind. There was a pause, probably bewilderment on my end and rage on theirs. He said before I could reply that I either choose not to notice things that ought to be seen or I am blind. He stated I had most likely become somewhat proud ever since I bought a property and avoided looking at the individuals who really mean something to me. I groaned and asked him what he meant by all of that, wanting that he would be more explicit. He blew sarcastically, then informed me I wasn't disturbed by the dire circumstances in the room. He stated I had elected not to offer or be of any kind of assistance and that I had chosen not to notice the family was in risk. I obviously asked him what risk he meant. Glancing across at Ash, who rolled her eyes and declared she was pregnant. Like any other person, I wanted to congratulate her, but she started crying before I could. Marissa hugged her and advised me to be concerned enough to find out what's happening at home. Dad stated Ash recently discovered she was pregnant, and the lad who caused it had broken up with her since. Marissa also mentioned that Ash has decided to maintain it, hence our basis for next decisions should be based on that. Can she afford it? All I could say. Ash and Marissa stared death at me. To be honest, I meant good. I was worried. I was actually ready to help her, but in my thoughts I had already imagined perhaps they wanted me to contribute financially. Dad then got up and moved over to my side to sit down with me. That's why he called me, he stated afterwards. He added that although maybe my mother neglected to educate me how to be a good brother, brothers would throw their life away for the comfort of their sisters. He said he is a nice parent to his daughter. I ask for your effing pardon. I'm not dying for her, but I know my financial input is required. I sighed and asked him what action he wanted me to take about it. He said, "That's my good boy," grinned, rubbed my back. I forced a phony smile, which vanished the instant Dad said, "You're giving Ashlyn your house." "No, I am not." Dad answered straight away. "Yes, that's what I said." Dad scowled and asked me why not. I told him I could help with some cash, but the house is mine. Until she can afford it, I can let her share a room free from rent. Dad got up from his chair then said, "Nonsense. Dad, it makes perfect sense to me." He insisted nevertheless, that I not only offer her the house but also move out and buy another for myself. I contended that if Ash is unemployed and expecting a kid, she cannot even afford to run the house or pay the expenses. Those, Dad informed me, would also be my obligations. Apologize to me? Hell to the number one. Though I was enraged, I had to be polite. Thus I got to my feet and informed him that it was not feasible and that I would now be departing. I then turned to go. He wasn't content to stop there. 1 week later, he turned up at my place when I was at work. I'm not sure how he entered or where he picked the keys from, but when I returned home I observed men loading boxes loaded with my belongings outside the house. Hurrying inside, I asked them what they were doing and they informed me the house owner had told them to toss the goods. I said that they should go right away and that I owned the house, they should get my belongings back inside. I lost my composure. Coming home, this was the last thing I would have predicted seeing. When I went inside to see Dad and Ash, they still stood there insisting I follow what brothers ought to do. They ignored my advice to leave, thus I informed them I will contact the police. They went at last, badmouthing me, applying curses and things. Though I know this is a lot to read, it was much worse in person. 1 week has gone by and I'm posting here since I kind of feel horrible about it. Was I in error? I feel like they need me and I shouldn't cut them off like this, but I also feel like my actions for them have limitations. Growing up, their disconnection and lack of concern for me infuriates me. Today, they ask me to lay my life down for them. Bit much, not sure what you mean here. Tell me, let me know. I couldn't even get my buddies involved in this. Right now you are all I have. Update. Hey everybody. I hope every one of you is good. I posted 1 week ago, and to be honest I didn't expect the attention it attracted. As the comments arrived, some made me doubt a number of things. Not too long afterward though, I decided not to break off my family completely. This came about via Ash calling me. I welcomed her by telling me she wanted to see me. She wanted to tell me a few things, therefore she asked to meet at my place, but I was still getting used to the scenario made last time. I urged us to meet somewhere else. She was first somewhat nervous when we visited a coffee shop. She seemed somewhat unlike herself, but generally she is rather conceited and unpleasant. She told me she had lately been broken off with as we sat in the corner. I answered, claiming I had an idea since Dad mentioned the man who got her pregnant had left her. She shook her head and said Dad believes that. She told me that although Dad believes her BF left her due to commitment problems, in fact she is the one with the commitment problems. Unbelievably, right? She said she truly loved this man, but he had discovered some things about her just a few days before she told him she was pregnant. She spoke first, therefore infuriating him even though he wanted to address her about those things. In that instant he became rather insane and drilled a hole in the wall. He frightened her, she claimed. He then said he was divorcing her and left without hearing her reply. She has been trying to phone him non-stop, but he hardly reacts. He has only once texted her back, advising her to let the child go first and inform him. He will only talk to her at all then, but she has to part from the child to have that opportunity. Now I know Ash ain't a saint, but this man. This person really bothers me greatly. She remarked it would be strange to tell a brother about the topics I just questioned her about. I shrugged and stated that it's okay if she doesn't want to tell me since I kind of realized she was most likely referring to the OnlyFans and escorting. She pulled in a great breath and let it out before I could ask her what she wanted to meet for. She then told me she had been engaged in dubious activities. Though I truly wanted to hear validation of all my doubts, I was concerned. She told me she wanted to paint and be an artist, but Marissa informed her she wouldn't get a decent life or income from it. Ash was advised she had to start looking for a man right now. She first felt disgusted as she soon enough began attracting the attention of elderly guys. She told Ash that it was a good thing when she informed Marissa about it. That is, the older males making any money at all, knowing what to do with their money. At the time Ash was just 19, and Marissa informed her college she would not or could not provide a decent, pleasant living. Ash had youth. Many would have paid for it. Ash resolved she wanted to be a model. She tried several modeling agencies but none seemed to be interested in her. She then ran into a man in his 40s claiming he could land her a job. He purchased her pricey outfits and jewels for the functions and drove her to gatherings. She was content till her first gig was mentioned. She turned out was selling her time to a man in order to pay for a modeling contract. She spent the evening as she assumed it would only be dinner. That was it. She did have a little modeling contract where she photographed a little brand. A few more men used her while she was hoping for a gig in exchange, but she was informed they chose not her. She then discovered that the man making investments in her was actually profiteering off of her. She was terrified he would have her killed, hence she considered it foolish to face him. She then informed him she was fine with low pay and that she no longer wanted to pursue modeling. He fortunately let her depart without any problems. She then attempted to wait tables in bars, and it proved rather difficult for her. Ash, hard-earned money is exactly what that is. Still, she also mentioned that Marissa would make fun of her for opting for those little tasks. Marissa would explain that women should be taken good care of. They are the beauty of this planet and should just be there to shine and smile like a showpiece, etc. Ash thus began to go out with men just for supper, but she charged for it. She claimed that although many loners out there simply wanted interaction, too many ended up with stalkers and obsessive males believing they were owed more than what they had paid for. She started escorting when she realized that interacting with men and having them feel close to her caused more trouble than sleeping with them. It worked great until a friend mentioned OnlyFans. She tried to get it rolling, but her editing and camera handling were not particularly strong. She wasn't social enough, thus that didn't work either. It takes a lot of effort. She next ran across her lover, BF, an ex-coworker. He returned often because he worked as a barista. Though he was too clingy, she really liked him. He also lacked trust in her and was a bit possessive. Given that she was indeed still on OnlyFans and an escort under his unaware knowledge, he had every reason to question her. Her BF started looking after her with the meager income she made when she stopped escorting and left OnlyFans totally. She seemed good with it, Marissa wasn't. She then fell pregnant, and her boyfriend discovered everything. She mentioned that a couple of the individuals on the list might be possible fathers. Every one of them donated money to help the child and her. One of them had even proposed to her, but she knows all of them are doing since they believe they are the only ones there, which is silly given she is an escort. She does not, however, tell them straight out that she pays her expenses and most likely helps with the kid. She said she decided to tell me all this since she couldn't tell Dad. Dad believes she has only been modeling here and there, makes little money, and that she had one man in her life who left her. Marissa mostly understands when he should have stayed. She advises Ash to wed the man who proposed and let him believe he is the father. Ash doesn't know, though, what to tell Dad. She also doesn't want to let anyone believe a lie and wants not to wed the guy since he is strange and ancient. She mentioned that some financial support would be great and that she wanted me to make up with Dad. I asked her what she wanted me to help with. She advised me to consent to what Dad asked and then spend some time away. I could then return when things are less contentious. How then is that a solution? I politely turned down her offer and informed her I could only provide some money. Nevertheless, I wasn't comfortable leaving my own residence. She then informed me I lacked the least bit of decency to assist her out, that she exposed her entire existence to me and that I was selfish thinking like way. She stated, even then, Dad was correct about me and I deserved to be sent to an orphanage instead of taken in when I needed somewhere to live. She stood up and stamped off. Though I believe my response was not too severe, is it selfish? Actually, what do you believe her side of the tale tells? Does it support her expectations? Should I trust her? She seemed to be speaking the truth, but does it follow that I should follow her advice? Tell me, everyone. Update. Right now, this is what is picking at my brain. A few things have transpired after another week. I assumed I would hit the keys and notify you all about it. I appreciate your help on my earlier update, gentlemen. Having folks back up my ideas for once is rather relieving. Still, Dad called me once I met Ash. He wanted to meet with me at the pub to sort out a few things. Interested, I agreed and went to see him. He mentioned he knew how much I was making as we sat at the counter. When I questioned him about why it mattered, he stated he knew I could afford to buy another property in a few years. I shrugged and said I already had a house, thus this conversation ought to be quite over. He maintained that since I didn't yet have a family and that single women find it more difficult to raise a child. That child needed a safe place he could call home. I reminded Dad then that Ash had been living with them long enough and that nothing seemed to be an issue. A small child won't harm. I also asked him what she would do, pregnant, living alone in a big house. She needs to be surrounded by others so that she could be looked after, I remarked. Dad surprised me once again at that point. He said Marissa and he would move in with Ash into my house. My hearing let me realize something. The bartender laughed sarcastically before I could react to that. Dad objected and inquired about what he found so humorous. He said, Ash. She uses everyone, he remarked, then tosses them away. He nodded, declaring he was her lover when my dad questioned him about who he was referring to. My eyes opened, so this was the man. Dad balled his fists and asked the man why he felt it was acceptable to establish a family he couldn't sustain. He spoke angrily. Holding his hands up, the man informed Dad he had no bearing on the family and issue. He also showed no desire in rearing a child not of his own. Dad pushed him to say why he felt that. He grinned and explained that although Ash still got pregnant, he had a vasectomy last year since he didn't want any children. He also discovered her driving off with several males following her lies on her whereabouts. Then he learned she had an OnlyFans page. He found none of it believable. That was the last straw for him when Ash at last told him they were expecting. He couldn't have a child, hence it verified everything. Knowing this, he told Ash she had been cheating on him all through. She let the truth fly free. While my ears were focused on Dad's voice, all I could see was his face moving from wrath to disbelief to disappointment. He shrugged and informed us she owed Ash money, time, honesty, at least love. He owed nothing else. He stated he was unsure whether Dad knew any of it, but he knew no dad would be ashamed of a child like that. Dad stiffened his lip, got off the stool silently, and turned away. He texted me later that evening, saying he had to go get Marissa from her yoga session. I'm not sure what happened after that, but I'm sure it was something as Ash was at my door sobbing the very following day. I wrecked everything, she informed me. To stifle a scene, I drew her inside and calmed her down. I told her I told Dad nothing. It was her boyfriend, the bartender Dad and I had visited. Then she told me Dad advised her to stay at home and stop everything. He claimed he never expected she would turn to such methods and felt disgusted by her. He advised her to pick a decent man and straighten her behavior. He also noted that these days her chances of meeting decent men were somewhat limited. I hugged her and listened to her. Dad had just returned from seeing me when he confronted her, so she stated she was sorry believing it was me. I forgave her, then she returned home. She added that Marissa was really quiet when Dad was discussing wonderful women and their loyalty, like she couldn't say anything, while she was raging and telling me how terrible she felt. Ash stated it's among the topics Marissa avoids talking about. She answered that Marissa couldn't have an opinion since she is yoga, so I asked her what she meant by that. I could only grimace in perplexity before Ash carried on crying as she related what else had transpired. Yoga, said stayed with me. Actually, what do you suppose happened? Will Ash still be Dad's pride source? Nobody has approached me ever since. Still, I will see and let you all know. I know y'all probably didn't expect me to get back to you so soon, but I couldn't help it. Update. 2 days after my last upload, and I am here for the ones inquiring. Although Ash's ex's name is not important, we may call him Bob. This is the fresh bit. I saw Dad the day before yesterday. I informed him I had some decisions made. I said I was ready to let Ash use a room and I wanted to assist raise her child. I would be fine paying for the diapers and other supplies, but she needs to start working right away. Dad informed me then that nobody would be with the kid, hence I advised her to attempt working from home or freelancing. This time, Dad wasn't his usual nasty self. He stopped and then let out a sigh. Telling me he felt I despised him, he settled on the couch. He was correct, but I probed him about his reasoning. Mom despised him too, thus he said, which was why. She never said that. I told him fast. Instead, she constantly stated Dad loved me and worried about me. I told him the only reason I felt let down at all was how inaccurate my view of Dad was. Mom told me all that. Then from Dad I sensed only absolute neglect and lack of caring. Rubbing his eyes, he confided in me he loathed himself for many ways. He stated he liked Mom, but they hadn't known enough to determine whether they were really each other's type. He sighed and added he had to marry her since he got her pregnant. Though he never felt the spark between them, she was a good wife to him. He next crossed paths with Marissa. I could feel my insides tingling at that. I remained motionless. None of this was known to me. Dad told me Marissa sparked a flame in him he never knew he possessed. He caught emotions before he knew it. He was quite delighted with her. Marissa became pregnant too before he could negotiate his way through rights and obligations. She was pregnant, therefore it was too late even if he informed her it was bad. He urged her to wait. He wanted to tell Mom first, but Marissa came to our house feeling nervous. She reported everything to Mom. She explained everything to Mom. Dad took it when Mom challenged him. Mom was really hurt in this quite unpleasant episode, yet even then she remained courteous and requested Dad for a divorce. My parents separated. Y'all, Dad had an affair with my stepmom and got her pregnant. I'm not sure just how much worse this dude could be. Dad stopped and glanced across at me. He stated he had to return me home after spending a good year with Marissa when Mom passed away. Marissa despised every aspect of it. Again, driven by guilt or something, she was worried that Dad could put me before their kid somehow. 3 years later, he sent me off to boarding school, and subsequently I never had to remain home long enough to cause Marissa any trouble. Love makes you do stupid things, he remarked, and I wanted to punch this man in the face but I restrained myself. Turning back, I found Marissa standing in the gateway carrying a water bottle. She claimed to be just heading to the yoga class. Setting her bottle on the table, she headed into the kitchen. I blinked, then she was back and was through the door before I could think clearly. Numb, hence I followed her out. I grabbed her water bottle to give back to her. She had already got in her car and was leaving when I came out. To help me to relax, I silently sat in my car and gently drove after her. She pulled out from parking outside a yoga club. She turned to glance around her and then began down an alley. She once more turned around and climbed into another car. She kissed and hugged the driver and they headed off. I was hardly able to blink. I locked my jaw, parked, got out, and entered the yoga club. When I asked them about Marissa checking in, they denied providing personal information. I insisted I was at least told if she were there, saying I was frightened about her. They informed me they had no customers under that name. I returned to my car and waited. I have no idea what came over me, but I started filming when the second car rolled in. Then slapped her butt as she happily headed to the parking lot when a man got out and opened her door for her, hugged her and kissed her. For yoga, Marissa, so much is different. I left before she arrived at the parking lot. My dad cheated on my mother, thus he is currently being cheated on as well. Karma is. Dad has phoned me several times, but I didn't answer. All I want right now is go and question Marissa about it, so I'm going to see what happens. Should I change? Hello y'all, I believe this to be most likely the last update. And I know it's a week late, y'all anticipated it to be sooner, but so much occurred this week. I first managed to man up and approach Marissa. I went when Ash was asleep and Dad was not home. Was she scheduled for yoga that day? She claimed to have it every day, on Sundays included. Cooking spaghetti in the kitchen, who was her yoga teacher? I asked her. She chose a name at random. Was that a guy? I asked her. Saying no, she chuckled and asked, why would I take a boy? She had a female instructor at the club she visited, so I told her it was odd since none of the other clubs had female instructors. She corrected me, but her voice startled me and her hands were no longer swirling the pasta sauce. They told me I had joined the club yesterday. I told her that. How could I know where her club was? She asked. I informed her I visited last time following her. She let go of a spoon. I grabbed it, and she spun around. What are you getting at? She asked. I then informed her what I observed. She disputed it as was natural. I mentioned I saw it with my own eyes. She shrugged and said Dad would never accept me. At least he would believe his own eyes, I told her after pulling out my phone and running through the footage. She stood stunned and spent a minute not speaking. Her face then relaxed, and she carried on cooking noodles. She stated it was useless now. She was already preparing for a divorce anyhow. My eyes grew wide. This woman was horrible. My dad deserved all of it, granted, but oh, she's a serpent. She informed me that her sweetheart of 3 years ago is the man she visits at the club. When it was safe to do so, they resurrected their passion. She stated they had fallen in love long ago, but at the time he was wed to another woman whose father had employed him for his business. Though there was a lot at risk, Marissa and her boyfriend decided he should keep his marriage intact and handle his money. He would then split from his wife and live with Marissa. But Marissa became pregnant and, as women should, she was trying to pin a man down for support. She made that decision to hang around Dad. They were seeing one another on and off, But Marissa chose Dad and told him he had to act when she met her boyfriend and got pregnant. She had to handle things herself since he developed cold feet, and that's when she spoke with Mom. She's good right now. Her partner is a widower and has a business. She said women should do what they can, kid, and turned around smiling. Her smile stopped though, as she peered over my shoulder. The next instant her smile vanished. I turned back to see Dad in the gateway with flaming eyes and clenched hands. He was shaking. Dad awakened Ash then and carried her to the kitchen. "Who was her father?" he asked. She shook her head and glanced across at Marissa. She assured him she always recognized him to be her dad, thus she didn't give Blood any thought. Pacing the floor, he ran his fingers through his hair. Marissa and Ash were instructed to leave his house 2 days later. The divorce is underway. At a shelter are Ash and Marissa. Dad has requested me to locate him as a therapist, and he has been rather quiet since. I pardon him every single time. Regarding Marissa, her boyfriend didn't bring her in. He disputes having ever spoken with her. Marissa has begged me for the proof. I have it. She even begged me to consider Ash through her pregnancy. And what can I say, Marissa? Your child, your challenge? From what standpoint should I act? Either destroy the footage or hand it up. I'll let others know in the comments soon later. I appreciate you joining me and for your ideas and encouragement. It means a great deal. I exposed my wife's secret affair with my friend by printing every hidden message they sent each other. For the sake of the narrative, let's call her Mia. My wife, 26F, cheated on me, 27M, with a friend of mine, Jack. Background: we met at another friend's wedding when I was 22. She was the bride's friend, and I was the groom's friend. Therefore they seated us at the same table hoping we would cross paths. I was quite surprised by her beauty when I first saw her. We discovered we shared a lot when she sat down and we started to chat. We clicked right away. After supper, we lingered for a little before heading to the dance floor. Throughout the evening, we drank and danced. We ended up kissing in the center of the dance floor, and when we broke off, our friends, the bride and groom, came over to ask what was going on between us. Playing matchmaker made them really happy. We basically ignored it and proceeded on through our evening. We parted without sharing numbers, but approximately 1 week later I received a text from her asking me out. The bride had supplied my number. Of course, I answered yes and developed a relationship out of it. The relationship was excellent. Apart from little disputes, we never truly battled and it was never anything major. About 2 years into our relationship, I finally asked her to wed me. We were married less than a year later. Just before our first anniversary, we were married for a little more than a year when everything collapsed upon me. I could find small irritations in anything. Her phone got more guarded, girls' nights grew more frequent, and our sex life nearly non-existent. I had brought this up several times, but she dismissed it, saying I was letting my fears control me. She would carry on as though what I sensed and tried to express had no relevance to her. I grew much colder as a result. We seldom spoke unless it was something vital. I stopped kissing her goodbye as I headed to work. I grabbed her phone and laptop one night while she slept, skimming her texts, emails, and messenger apps but found nothing. Inspired by stories on this site, I decided to investigate her car. I noticed a second phone as I reached for her keys and glanced in her car. Though I knew right away what was happening, I wanted all the proof for when I called her out. She should not have spoken anything like that, something which had only happened once or anything dumb like that. Searching the phone, I discovered just one number. I linked the phone to my computer, went over every note and printed every message along with every picture. I looked at divorce lawyers late tonight. Reading profiles of lawyers for hours in my home office, I came upon one that appealed to me and emailed him. But because it being a Saturday, he wasn't at the office. Then I wanted to find out who the guy was, so I grabbed my phone, entered the number and was prepared to claim I was from Spectrum since who doesn't have Spectrum. Jack's contact then suddenly showed up though. It took me a minute to arrange 2 and 2 together, but I blew up when I did. In my workplace, I was screaming and berating. My wife entered the door to check on me. Upon seeing her, I advised her to get the fuck out. She went to our room and locked the door. I had never raised my voice over a reasonable level or cursed at my wife. I silently raged from my office all day, just staring at the wall. I asked if he would come with me after phoning one of my friends, the wedding's groom, to let him know I needed to get a drink. He inquired whether I was all right, so he must have detected something in my voice. I admitted to him I truly wanted a drink and I wasn't. I gathered all the printouts silently and headed to the bar. Arriving first, I ordered 4 Jack pictures along with a beer. As my friend Ted came and inquired about what was going on, I was on my last shot. Mia was cheating, I told him right out. He showed me sympathy. I inquired whether he wanted to know with whom. He seemed clearly agitated when I told him it was Jack. He was the one first introducing Jack to me. All he could say was, "I'm sorry," over and over. Jack and I have never been quite close. Although we wouldn't invite one another to hang together, we were friendly if we happened to run across each other at a get-together. Having just discovered this and hadn't even spoken to Mia or a lawyer yet, I advised Ted not to discuss this with anyone. If his wife questioned what was wrong with me, I advised him to tell her I was having trouble at work. He concurred. Most of the evening we drank and chatted. Then, at approximately 3 in the morning, I got an Uber and headed home. Since I phoned Ted, it was the first time I checked my phone. There were missed calls and a lot of texts from Mia, asking where I was, when I would be home, and whether I was okay. When I got home she was curled up on the couch napping. I simply went to sleep walking up to our bedroom. She was in bed when I woke up, so I got ready and left the house. I went to pick up my car, head to my office and buried myself in work for the day. About 10 o'clock, I headed home. My wife surprised me by showing up to welcome me and mentioning she had dinner. "Would you like her to heat it?" she inquired. I turned her down and went to bed. Not far behind, she questioned me about what was wrong. I said I wanted to sleep and she should leave me alone. She persisted till finally I snapped and cried, "Mia, stop! I should be asleep right now, leave!" The attorney emailed me the next morning requesting a later in the day meeting. I confirmed and prepared for my day. Mia had made breakfast and asked to chat when I walked downstairs to head out. I prepared a small plate and settled in. She began by noting that I had been acting differently and then went on and on mentioning my changes and asking why. I informed her that work had been demanding and that it will soon be all done. I told her I had to go after finishing. Counting down the minutes till I could see the lawyer, I headed to my workplace. I informed my assistant I was leaving to lunch with a customer. I left as my wife occasionally would call my work. The legal meeting went smoothly, and I turned over all the material I had collected on her. "Well, I'm sorry for all that's going on," the attorney said. "But I'm glad you acquired all this material. You see, most of your money your wife has no claim on since we live in a no-fault state." I told him I had not given that any attention. I was only thinking I should divorce her right now. He insisted on keeping the proof, but I told him I would rather he simply create duplicates as I hadn't told my wife yet and I wanted to avoid hearing her justification. He agreed and had his assistant copy made. When would she be served the papers? I asked. He advised me it would take 2 weeks. I thanked him then and headed off. I headed home to face my wife. She wasn't at home when I got there, so I phoned. None of it. I got back on the line. No response. I texted her, "If you're with Jack right now, I don't give a fuck. Arrive home. We must have a conversation." Not a minute later, she called me, not sure what I was talking about. I told her simply, "Get home now." About 15 minutes later, she showed up. I said to her, "Wow, look at that. 15 minutes? That's around the same distance between here and Jack's, not sure exactly." She turned to face me, stunned. She was just staring at me after I gave her a minute to calm down. "Well?" I asked. "Not much to say here." I let her carry on while she tried to gaslight and deny me. She got herself up and began to disparage me. To silence her, I pounded my hand on the table and drew out the proof. "Look at this mountain of things I've gathered on you," I remarked, showing it to her from the side. I then went through one printout at a time showing her. She told me to stop immediately and started to cry. She told me she loved me and tried to apologize. "Honey, what happened to that energy you had before? Just a minute ago, you were rather determined about denigrating and attacking me." I put my hand out and said, "Don't touch me," as she wanted to hug me and apologize. She suggested we could go to the bedroom and do whatever I wanted. Looking her squarely in the eyes, I said, "Sweetheart, I will never touch you again. Who else has these pictures and messages? You wish to know? My attorney. I am divorcing you. Now get a bag, sort your clothes and leave my house fuck free." That was 3 days ago. I haven't heard from her since. I apologize for the length of this and any spelling mistakes. For people who have been where I am at, what can I expect from here? I appreciate you looking over this. You all gave me a lot of advice after I uploaded the first section of this, so I mostly followed it. I meant to conduct some damage control in my life this morning, hence I made a doctor's appointment to be examined for STDs. 2 days from now is that appointment. I then began calling every person close to me. My father and a few pals. They have all been quite helpful, providing their own guidance and inquiring as to if I require assistance with any one thing. But I turned it down since I had this garbage locked on. I then got on to calling her family. Thanking them for letting me into their family, I emailed her mom and dad saying I was appreciative of all they had done for me. But I told them I will really miss them tremendously since Mia and I are divorcing. Not really. They were somewhat smothering, and even if they are wonderful people, I'm glad I'm free from dealing with it. I next advised them to feel free to ask questions should they have any. After not getting back from them for some time, I turned to Mia's sister. This kind of hurt since I knew it would sour her sister's friendship and we were excellent friends. Saying, "Hey, I'm sorry to have to text you this, but Mia and I are going to get divorced and I wanted you to know. I want to thank you. You embraced me as a brother right from the beginning. I will be here should you ever need anything from me." Her parents answered back at the same moment I sent the SMS. The dialogue proceeded as follows. Parents. We regret learning of this. Whatever happened? Why has Mia not spoken to us? Mia has been in an at least 1 year long affair. I suppose it began before our wedding. She hasn't gotten in touch, and I'm not sure why, but you should phone her. She went from the house. She would have gone to you, I reasoned. Parents. We have not heard from her. We'll give her a call. Thank you for informing us. Are you really positive she was having an affair? I'm upbeat. Parents. We're really sorry she did that. You found their books. We will try and contact her. I took care of her family, then went on to Jack's fiancé. I know it was mentioned in some of the comments. I'm not sure whether I told you all he is engaged in the first section. I assumed this would be challenging, that Mia and Jack would have hatched some grand plans, but either Mia didn't tell them I discovered or they are just morons. About 2 o'clock, I texted her and asked whether we might get together for something like coffee. She accepted around 2:05, and instructed me to meet her at some terrible hipster coffee shop across from her workplace at 2:30. Arriving first, I ordered my awful coffee and waited a few minutes. She arrived and joined me after walking in. Placing her order, I said to her, "I'm simply going to blurt it out. Jack has been cheating on you with my wife. There's no simple way to say what I'm about to tell you. It has been going for almost a year." She seemed clearly startled, so I told her I'd only learned a few days before. I know I ought to have told her then, but I had a divorce to start and my own pity to cope with. She inquired about my source and I responded with everything covered in the first piece. Then I brought out a binder and asked whether she would want to view the material I had collected. She took the binder, quickly went over the photographs and notes, and then began to weep softly. She is more than welcome to grab the binder. Extra copies if she wanted to confront Jack with it or check whether he would lie. She thanked me, got up, picked the binder and let me know whether she needed anything from me. She nodded her head and left, obviously demoralized. I know you all advised me to keep a level head, stay sober and whatnot. Yet my world collapsed on top of me. This week I'm going to sit on my rear porch, drink, smoke cigars and blare music. I'll stop feeling bad about myself after this week and resume my regular calendar. More positively, I have already packed most of her belongings, clothing, jewelry, etc. I also threw every picture with her in our wedding book into the crates. I want her here no more than she needs to be should she return for her items. Besides a few picture frames, nothing is shattered. Before you ask, no, I didn't ruin her clothes. Right now, nothing else is happening. I told everyone I ought to have told. 90% of her stuff is in boxes. My doctor's appointment is set. My lawyer is hard at work trying to get me out of this crap. I truly have no idea what remains. Should she stay out of my life, this may be the simplest divorce ever. I appreciate you looking over this. One values advice constantly. Update 2. Hey everyone. I'm sorry I missed in action for a little and didn't reply to comments and mails, but I believe I caught up now. Regarding the update, I have been enjoying my pity party, drinking, and even more drinking since the previous time. Since I discovered everything and can't really put into words how I feel, this is probably my first semi-sober moment. I suppose numb is a good word. I told everyone all I informed them in the last post. The only one not responding was Mia's sister, from whom I was rather close. After writing the update, that evening I carried on my drinking spree, passed out on my back patio with a bottle and several beer cans all about, and woke up to the fragrance of breakfast cooking. Oh Christ, Mia came back and thinks breakfast is going to make up for what she's done, I first thought. Surprised, let's name Mia's sister Emma, I built myself up into a fury, flung myself from the chair, ready for a yelling match. Emma hurried to me and wrapped her arms around me when I stood there momentarily attempting to cool myself. She realized I was awake. She said nothing. She just took my hand, walked me to the table, and set a plate in front of me. She told me how sorry she was while I ate and that when her sister showed up at her place she simply stated that we were having issues and that everything would be good in a few days. She then informed me that when I texted Mia regarding the divorce, she asked Mia, "If it's fine, why is he divorcing you?" Mia apparently simply broke down and told Emma everything. I laughed and added, "There's no way she told you everything," then went on to relate all that had happened. Emma informed me Mia had indicated it was only one time and I was exaggerating it. Emma was here wasting her time since I told her I had no intention of getting back together with Mia. I also advised her to let Mia know she should get a lawyer if she gets in touch with her. Emma chuckled and remarked she was here for me, not for her sister. She told me she would be there for her sister naturally, but that she and I are friends and she wouldn't forsake me, particularly if I did nothing wrong. I got up, moved to her side of the table and just gave her a hug. Hearing her say that made me feel so much better since I was so concerned that all this crap would sour our friendship. Emma left this morning as I was getting ready to head to my cabin. She remained with me for 2 days in the guest bedroom. I had it before the marriage, thus Mia cannot touch it. She asked if she might join me as I was assembling my hunting and fishing gear, but I told her as much as I would want. She should most likely go check on her sister. She hugged me, agreed, and walked off. Emma is really appreciated for being there for me. Before any of you claim she's into me, she isn't. She is also 20, and for me that is far too young. Simply said, it's a very close friendship. I nearly forgot to mention that I visited a doctor, underwent tests, and should get results on Monday. A couple times I have personally contacted Jack's fiancée to just check on her. She says she's good but she has no idea what to do. I'm more than happy to listen if she wanted to meet any time next week so she could rant. I really appreciate all the appreciation you have given me as well as reading, getting in touch. In my life, you all have been a lighthouse during a somewhat dark period. The only thing I can advise any of you experiencing this is to put your head down and concentrate on what you truly want. Whether it's reconciliation or divorce, make one at a time goals. For me, it was lawyer first then doctor, telling all those close. Keep it off of the internet though. Set time also to release your emotions. Thank you once more. Apologies. These updates always seem so long. Update 3. I discussed Emma visiting my place and spending several days in my prior post. She left when I was headed hunting from my cabin. Positively, I scored a buck, a good, big 8-pointer. I'm very glad I acquired him on my first day out as it allowed me the remainder of the time to go fishing. I fixed one dinner and killed the other since I only caught 2 but they were good size. I stayed at the lodge cleaning my deer and savored the natural surroundings throughout. Apart from 2 glasses a day, I traveled sober as promised. My drinking was just for last week. On to the last couple days now. My doctor called and I'm all clear. Though Mia and I haven't had much enthusiasm in a few months, it's not really shocking. All the same, you never know. I contacted Jack's fiancée but didn't hear back for some time. She answered finally, saying she is currently staying with her family. She didn't really go into great depth, but her being with her family, you could only guess as I do, that things are not going so well. At least she's with family, protected, and with all the help she might require. All she needs to do, I reminded her, is reach out, if there is anything I can do. Naturally, I accepted when she invited me to meet and get coffee the next day. We convened at the same horrible hipster coffee shop the following day and spent almost 2 hours chatting. We discussed all that Mia and I had gone through. She wanted to know if I was divorcing, if I would be reconciling, or what steps I was following. In my book, I informed her, that's it after someone cheats. The degree of selfishness and disdain required to cheat, let alone for a year, showcases clearly her lack of concern for me. What was her plan? I questioned her. She confided in me that she is perplexed about everything and that all she believed to be factual turned out to be lies. Whether to go on or to forgive him, she wasn't sure what her next action should be. You're a better person than me if you can forgive someone for cheating on you for that length of time, I advised her. She told me all of her family was advising her to forgive him and then get married. Just because it's what your family wants doesn't mean you need to follow along, I advised her, being direct. Then I said, Jack cheated on you, his fiancée, with my wife. He clearly doesn't give marriage and what it all implies any thought. Should that not convince you he is not marriage material, I am not sure what else does. I advised her to follow her moral compass and not let anyone else except herself make choices impacting her life. When I found out, all I could do was consider how my heart could fool my head into thinking of some way I could accept it and forgive Mia, but I just could not do it. I claimed too that I only spoke with one individual, but that I had already decided and that nobody could change my mind. When you stayed with your family, You had a very decent notion of what you were going to do, but you let too many people in and they all interpreted it any way they wanted. I ended by telling her all she had to do was trust her gut. Her heart and brain will constantly lie to her. If her gut senses something is odd, 9 out of 10 times her gut is most likely accurate. She said thanks, and we headed home separately. My lawyer messaged me the next day saying Mia had been served successfully at her place of employment. I appreciated all of his work, particularly in relation to the timescale he has achieved. Emma called not long after that to inform me Mia has stayed in her room all day and is crying in bed. Mia was served, and she is most likely realizing how terrible she screwed up. Emma wanted to know whether I had anything and how the cabin was. I told her all I did and how my stay went. We spoke for a little then hung up. I then got ready and cleaned my house for her response. Given her recent serving, I reasoned that she will burst shortly, given that she has time. I am thus calmly waiting for it now. I have Advil on hand for what I would guess to be a little headache. When I informed a friend he nodded. Should Mia show there, he would dash over to act as a witness, should all else fail. I'm writing right now, awaiting Hurricane Mia to rip through my house. Should she or when she does, I will forward another update. I appreciate each of you reading. Update 4. About an hour or so after publishing yesterday, I was waiting for Mia to show up at the house and go ballistic. Though given all that has happened, I never truly knew the woman. I had no real reason to believe she would behave. I checked every camera I had set up, inside and outside, to make sure they were running as they should. Telling my friend that Mia was served today, I told him he should get to my place right away should she show up. Thanks to this woman, I am not going to jail. Turns out I was correct since Mia arrived at the house screaming to allow her in and banged on the door. Mia was pounding on my door, so I called Emma and my friend right away to get here. She was shouting every name in the book, berating my name, imploring me to allow her in and wondering how I could be so callous. She's not incorrect as all I could do throughout the time she was screaming and pounding on the door was giggle. Then I questioned why she didn't just stroll in since, at least from what I knew, she still carried keys. My friend arrived still screaming and cursing, so he started to record on his phone and stayed in his truck. But these morons brought Mia's buddy, his wife, with him. She thus came out and aimed to cool Mia down. She approached Mia, arms around her, attempting to get her to talk, but Mia then slapped her across the face, shouting at her to mind her own business. That led my friend, who now has a video of it, to call the cops. Till the cops arrived, Mia kept screaming and cursing. She put much effort on portraying the victim when they did. She started to weep and tell the 2 cops I hit her and threw her out of the house. Mia was yelling and pounding on the door when my friend and his wife arrived at the house, so they verified that I hadn't followed her advice. Officer was done chatting with my friend and his wife, then he came to my door. Mia remarked, "There, that's him," when I opened it. He struck me. I want him taken into custody. I told the officer I could prove she was lying to him, all I needed, so she started to put me in cuffs. Stopping, the officer instructed me to show him the view captured on the exterior cameras. Having seen the video, he said he was sorry for presuming I was the one in error and for drawing snap judgments. I told him I didn't blame him, but he then informed me my neighbors had called them 15 times overall, and allegedly Mia had yelled out, "He hit me," during her outburst. Thus the cops had rendered their decision already. Mia spent around half an hour dealing with the police before being charged with disturbing the peace, public intoxication, and a DUI and being placed in handcuffs. Emma showed up and came to me inquiring what had occurred as the cops drove her to the car. I played her the entire video on my phone. Then the officer came up to give me some extra documents and the case number. Emma started to probe the charges, so I returned inside. Emma came right behind and sat behind me. She informed me she had left her house for 10 minutes to run to the store, but when she returned Mia was no longer in the living room, so she assumed Mia had gone to bed after too much alcohol. After some time of conversation, Emma requested whether she might spend the night with me. She was always welcome whenever, I said. She informed me Mia had to stay the night in jail. I'm not sure why, but they may get her released early in the morning. Emma doesn't have that type of money, thus she told me when I returned inside she called her parents to let them know what was occurring and to see whether they could bail Mia out. We shared a beer and shortly went to bed. Emma had already left to see her folks when I got up in the morning. Though I haven't heard from Mia, Emma, or their parents, I wouldn't find it to be a lively discussion. Update 5. Since that evening, I haven't heard from Mia, but my lawyer received calls from hers informing him he will be representing Mia. At last we may begin this process. I also asked Jack's fiancée whether she had any updates on her front. We only chatted back and forth, but she informed me she kicked him out of her house and had her father and brother pack everything and drop it at his house. She stated she just wanted to put all this behind her and go on. Her dad and brother wanted to beat him, but she urged them not to. She said her close friends are available for her when she needs them and thanked me for checking on her. I emailed her the link to my Reddit page so she could view all the help you all provide her and to her. Friday, the instant I left the office, I ran home. I had intended to spend the weekend back in my cabin. Emma was in my driveway when I showed up. She had a list of what my wife expected and intended to obtain from her sister. I quickly went over it and all except one object was already in a box or sitting in my garage just waiting to be picked up. I informed her I'm not carrying or touching anything from here. I want to avoid liability should Mia wish to claim I damaged her belongings. Right now I'm heading to my cabin and don't have time to deal with Mia's crap, so I told Emma I would pay for a moving company to come and box all her stuff. That would be fantastic, she added, and hoped I enjoyed myself. She piled a box of Mia's clothes in her car. Then she turned to me and asked whether she may tag along this time. Sure, why not go back home, drop off the box and pack a bag for yourself, I asked. She was dragging up by the time I headed to the shop and loaded the truck. I shut my house and started Emma toward the cabin. The weekend turned out rather perfectly. I understood what a gem that location is when I was last visiting there. It is totally secluded and has a great perspective, thus I am free from dealing with people. Here you may really rest and breathe in. I phoned a moving firm on Monday, and by Tuesday 3 men in a large truck pulled up and began loading. As they closed the box and picked it up, I had every box opened. As the movers loaded all the furniture, I photographed every piece. I tipped each of them an extra $50 and thanked them all for letting me live. I then proceeded on with my day and submitted all the recordings and photos to my lawyer. The house looks empty yet also spotless without all her possessions. My lawyer advised me not to throw away anything that would be deemed shared when I started this process, hence I kept most of the furniture in a storage facility. Since she departed, I have been sleeping in the guest room. So, up until I started writing this piece, I had been shopping for entirely new furniture. Now that I have the garage, I most likely will be storing most of the stuff there. Even if I win the house in the divorce, it has too many negative memories, thus I won by not keeping it. Update 6. My last post was quite some time ago. Between finishing this divorce, handling my soon-to-be ex, and coaching these children, I don't have much free time at the moment. Quite a lot has transpired, hence this may be a long post. Please be patient. A few days after the movers delivered her items to Mia, my attorney received some documentation stating I damaged her items and that I would pay her $1,500 or she would be bringing me before court over it. Asking exactly where the damages she claimed I caused, my lawyer sent hers all the footage and images. All this does is tell the judge how unhinged she is, and it might be a headache now, but when it's time for court, this will all be perfect evidence, he said. Her attorney wasn't prepared for my level of meticulousness or for me photographing and recording everything. I was, for some reason, pulled to this page and read all of the horror stories of the things people's previous husbands did to them when I learned of my wife's affair. I absolutely refuse to be another one of those stories. I wouldn't put anything past her at this point. I have practically every consequence and accusation she could make ready for her. Mia had called once every other day, but I never answered. I merely forward her voicemail to my lawyer. I don't bother listening to it if she left one. Every time I forward my attorney something, he always tells me, "You are a wet dream for a lawyer. You pay attention to everything I say. On your own, you compiled a mountain of proof." I have not yet had a customer that has done so brilliantly. When I mentioned, he says that every time, he wasn't exaggerating, but it makes me smile. Having that confidence from him that I'm doing everything right helps me to feel somewhat better about the whole circumstances. My lawyer informed me roughly 2, maybe 3 weeks ago that we have enough proof to bury her outside of court. Should it fail, it would reflect well on us for efforts. We thus scheduled a meeting in a neutral lawyer's office a week ago. He advised me before we met, don't react to anything Mia might say. No matter what. Should it go before court, everything we do would be noted for a judge to review. Early in the morning we arrived and headed into the workplace. She was already there waiting with her lawyer, shockingly. When we arrived, the lawyers began chatting to one another. Silent sitting there, Mia and I waited for what was to come. Mia's attorney began by inquiring about our offerings. Mine laughed and declared, "With a mountain of proof of the affair and Mia's inappropriate behavior later, the only thing we'll offer is half of the selling price of the house and half of the savings account. That beyond what any court would award. You will be departing with basically what you entered into the marriage with." He then turned straight toward Mia and said, "If you choose to go to court, I will publish every message, making you read it all out loud. I will then post every picture up for all in court for viewing and ask you to meticulously explain what you are doing in each one. Then I'll mention your most recent accusations and show the footage captured that evening. Looking at me, Mia started to cry and asked whether she could do anything to right this. You have been cheating on me since before our marriage, I remarked. I can only show a few weeks before the wedding. I imagine there was far more. Nothing at all could possibly help me to forget or pardon you for what you have done. Sign the paperwork. It's more than you deserve and I want to be done with this whole hoax you produced. She had to excuse herself to the bathroom and shed terrible tears for 15 minutes. She still was in tears when she got back, but she signed the paperwork and left not long after. Everything will be filed in roughly 1 month, hence all I will have left to do is sell the house. I appreciate everyone reading and all of your wise counsel. Though I could be mistaken, I do not see anything else occurring. Should it, I will let you know. But most likely this will be my last post, hence once again, thank you everybody. I hope what occurred to me benefits at least one person else out there. Facing the truth, discovering my fiancé's deception, just 2 weeks before our wedding and the consequences that follow. I really have to get this off my mind. I feel like I'm going crazy. For around 6 years, engaged for 1, my fiancée Sarah and I have known each other. Our wedding is set for just 2 weeks, and I recently saw something that makes me feel as if I am making the worst mistake of my life. Sarah and I were using tonight a rare chance to unwind at home. While I was out back working on one of my projects, Sarah was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Anyway, as you do when working hard, I became thirsty and returned home to grab a drink. There Sarah was at the counter cooking supper and speaking on speakerphone. The voice caught me right away as Marty, my brother-in-law. This is now where my thinking goes completely distorted. Having been attempting to get in touch with her and she is not responding texts, Marty questioned Sarah where her sister, Evelyn, is. She just left here. She should be home in a half hour or so, Sarah says to him. It should be mentioned that Evelyn is the 5-year-old wife of Marty. I have to admit that I went into the kitchen, got a glass and asked Sarah, what was that all about? Not right once registering what she had just said. She said, Marty was looking for Evie. Seeing her texting, I inquired, what are you doing? She says, I'm texting Evie that Marty was looking for her. Still, I pour myself a drink, settle down, sip and then at last my brain kicks in. First of all, I heard Sarah tell Marty Evelyn was here. Evelyn was not here. The last time we saw her was yesterday when she visited to work on some last-minute wedding decoration with Sarah. Second, when I clearly heard Marty mention Evelyn wasn't responding to her texts, why is she texting Evelyn expecting a response? Finally, unless she either knows where she is or right now in front of me, texting her to tell her to get her butt home fast, why the hell would she tell Marty that Evelyn should be back in 30 minutes? My only conclusion is that Sarah is presumably alerting Evie that Marty would expect her home in half an hour and is lying to Marty about the location of her sister. Then I spent probably the next 5 hours creating several theories explaining this behavior. Some decent, some absolutely terrible. And running them back in my thoughts. Though I wanted very badly to ask Sarah about this, I doubted I would get a straight response if what I believe to be happening is indeed happening. Which gets me roughly 1 hour ago. About 1 in the morning, I got up to use the loo and found myself driven to check Sarah's phone. Knowing each other's pins, this wasn't a challenging task for us. Still, I took the phone, went to the restroom, unlocked it, and yep, exactly what I was terrified of and most likely what most of you were hoping for. For approximately 6 months, Sarah's sister Evelyn has been having an affair with a coworker. Sarah has been helping Evelyn hide it for practically that whole period. Between them, there are literally hundreds of books covering sex, the coworker, even quite embarrassing topics about my brother-in-law, just stuff that makes my stomach turn. And here is my soon-to-be bride following all of it without questioning. I grabbed some screenshots of the whole thread, put the phone back where I discovered it and then withdrew to my home office to find myself here blogging it all out on Reddit just so I can avoid the primal scream that wants to come out of my mouth right now. I am exactly 100% screwed, Reddit. I just cannot do it. I cannot marry Sarah. Regarding helping her sister in this affair and victimizing not just Marty but also their 2-year-old kid, I cannot conceive of any logical justification she could present me. On the other hand, my family, Sarah, her family, and I have all invested a lot of money into a wedding scheduled for about 2 weeks. We are not receiving any of that money returned. On top of that, I feel completely dumb. How could I have missed knowing this woman was this way? And just what the devil am I going to do? I most definitely cannot marry her. Still, I still wish. She is gorgeous, laid back, compassionate, and I felt our future was bright. She never wronged me, but I just cannot view her the same today. It like a large black blot on a lovely image. I'm genuinely dreading doing what I know I need to do. I simply don't know how the heck I got this so wrong. I wish I could break something or throw up. Edit. Guys, you clearly don't need to persuade me not to wed Sarah. The wedding is off. I'm simply trying to decide what to do going forward and build the nerve to act. Though the expectations of everyone put a lot of pressure on me, I am not going to bow beneath it. Simply said, I'm not enjoying having to deal with the repercussions. I'm more than a little irate about finding myself in this position. Edit 2, it is 5 a.m. I'm running off a few hours of sleep and have work in 3 hours. I'm going to shower and head into work rather early to avoid stew on this. Sarah and stew are avoided. Thanks to the encouraging folks here and a huge raspberry to the dill holes who keep telling I should figure out whatever excellent reason my soon-to-be ex-fiancé had for this trash. Edit 3, I started working about 7. I started working on the Band-Aid because nobody was in the office and contacted my brother. Living in Australia, he was still up after putting his children to bed. Breaking the news to him about this was difficult since, although I know he has set aside a lot of money for flights for his family and himself to visit, to his credit, as an older brother, he didn't mention it once and simply supported me. He also raised a really important issue. He said, "You deal daily with liars and scammers in a job where this is expected. You are not to blame for seeking somewhere to visit where this is not a consideration." He was exactly right about it, and now I understand why I'm reacting so fiercely to Sarah's involvement in this dishonesty. He also made a brilliant suggestion. He planned to bring his family to Florida for some sightseeing and park visits. Well, the youngsters will now also be accompanied by their uncle. We were going to honeymoon there as well, thus it should be simple as we were going to meet them for some anyway. I'll just offer Sarah's ticket to either my sister or another family member and rebook things to be near his and his family. Though I have responded a few, I haven't had time to review everyone's remarks. Right now, I'm simply trying to divert myself until the day goes on enough where I can reach out to Marty by drinking cup after cup of coffee and attempting to make myself sick. Edit 4, just performed morning stand-up. Having been here so early, my stomach is doing flip-flops from drinking around 2 pots of coffee. I absolutely cannot focus and concentrate. I'm just going to take a sick day, drive over to check if Marty is available since I feel like I can't really anything from my end until I tell him what I know. If not, I will find him down and phone him. Evelyn works a 9 to 5 like me, hence chances are excellent this works out. Marty is a teacher on break right now. Wish Reddit luck. Edit 5. Arrived at Marty's residence somewhat after 10 a.m. We had a long, really nasty conversation in the kitchen after he had just dropped his daughter off for a nap. He guessed this for a few months essentially, but Evelyn has been rather successful at covering her traces, clearly with Sarah's help and a few of their mutual pals. I regretfully only have a few hundred screenshots from Sarah's phone. Not all 6 months of text chats, but I provided him what I have and offered to assist him though I could. I know a few things and a few people since I'm a field analyst in the CU department of a mid-sized insurer specialized in workers' compensation fraud. Still, I am trying to save anything I can from my laptop in the almost brother-in-law's kitchen. Knowing I won't screw Marty over, I have to talk to Sarah tonight and get the word out as soon as I can to my friends and family now. Although our airline has a surname restriction for name changes, I managed to rebook most of the honeymoon thus far. Sarah was flying under her maiden name, thus I had trouble with the ticket. Still, they let me cancel and obtain a partial refund and rebook for my sister, who will be traveling to Florida with 2 brothers and nieces in a few weeks. I absolutely will be letting my family and friends know this afternoon sometime and beg them to keep it close, but I am delaying canceling the venues until after I talk to Sarah since I don't want to tip anyone off until Marty gets his chance to confront Evelyn. Right now I'm essentially in a frenzy, canceling whatever I can cancel, and I'm heading down to the bank in a few to open a new account and pay my payments and straighten my money. Though some have highlighted them, it should be really decent. Since we were not married, the mortgage is in my name. Although Sarah did contribute roughly $20,000 against my $60,000 down payment, I have more income. Though it could be worse, I will most likely have to pay her out that money and a portion of the mortgage payments for the last 16 months. Update was sent as an edit right on the same post. Right now it's about 8:30 p.m. I'm writing from my friend's place. Mark is his name, he used to be a co-worker of mine in the same line of business. As I indicated in a prior update, I work for a respectable-sized insurance carrier's CU department as a field analyst. For those uninitiated, I essentially work as a private investigator. My task is to look at what we believe to be bogus workers' compensation claims. Anyway, as I sort of hinted at, Marty wanted me to help him identify the other man Evelyn was seeing for adultery. We had only a name, let us call him Jake. The first thing I did was not some significant amount of investigating. It was essentially simply looking through LinkedIn, attempting to discover the guy using Evelyn's contacts, but it turned up nothing, which I thought odd. According to Marty, Evelyn claimed she wouldn't be home until perhaps 9 or 10 and that she was meant to be out for drinks tonight following work. I basically understood straight immediately, so he didn't have to explain what he suspected. I told him I would assist him, but he had to come with me. After that, I called my friend Mark, let him know about the circumstances, and asked him to meet us later in the day. Driving over to Marty's parents' house so they could see their granddaughter came first. I waited in the car and have no idea what Marty said them. We next headed to Evelyn's place of employment. One of those big commercial strip malls, it features a sizable non-gated parking park and all of these bland offices in a row. We drove till we came at Evelyn's car, then using the second set of keys, I had Marty unlock it. I next handed Marty a GPS tracker to put in the car and a voice-activated recorder. Once finished with that, we went, parked somewhat down the street, and watched for Evelyn to leave the company and for my friend to arrive. About 20 minutes later, Mark arrived, climbed in the car with us, and about an hour later Evelyn emerged from her workplace carrying two of her pals along with a tall, younger-looking man with sandy blonde hair. Clearly holding hands, I thought, damn Evelyn, you're making it easy for me. After a few shots from the car, I waited for Evelyn to leave in hers and began following her. She didn't go straight to a motel or anything, first thinking she may. Rather, she drove to a reasonably good pub and grill in a pleasant area of town and parked on the street. I drove by her as she got out of her car and into the building, then located my own parking space and headed over to the factory. We first dispatched Mark since nobody knew him. He essentially had two jobs. First, try to find any compromising photos of Evelyn and Jake. Second, provide my alibi. After about 20 minutes in the car, Marty and I received the first in Mark's series of text messages. These images show Evelyn and Jake making out in front of their two female colleagues. Captured. Marty's misgivings were correct. They were enabling Evelyn to keep the affair from him. He was clearly really agitated and offended. One of the colleagues apparently is married, and as a couple they get along well with Marty and Evelyn, both of whom have children around the same age. When I asked Marty whether it was sufficient for him, he stated he still genuinely wanted to know who this guy was. We could find out later, I tried to tell him, but at this point he was nearly begging me, so I begged him to wait, texted Mark that I was on my way, and then I went inside the pub myself. Evelyn and her gang were laughing and drinking at one of those big circular tables close to the front window. First thing I saw. I halted as I came in, acted to be startled, then yelled out to Evelyn, "Hi, you're doing here?" Clearly startled to see me, everyone surrounding her stiffened up right away. Evelyn stated we were being married in 2 weeks and fast introduced me as her sister's fiancé. Everyone was congratulating each other really extensively. I thanked them and then reached out my hand to the blonde man, introduced myself using my entire name, thinking he would react in same manner. He did. I was a little surprised since he wasn't named Jake. I greeted everyone else and then told Evelyn I was going to see a coworker. I waved to Mark, then excused myself. Once I walked over to Mark, I told him the guy's name. We both grabbed our phones and headed to work. We located him not too long ago. He has social media profiles and a few court case rulings against him. When we learned Jake was his middle name, everything almost came together. At this point, I'm basically happy Evelyn isn't cheating on Marty with two other colleagues. Jake is 26, married, and has a 1-year-old daughter, turns out. This simply gets better and better. Anyway, I instructed Marty to wait a few more minutes after texting him the guy's name and decided I wanted to challenge myself. I was essentially watching over children here at the bar. I could see out of the corner of my eye that nobody was especially delighted about this, and my presence was seriously hurting the evening. I was clearly visible to Evelyn and her crew. Excellent. About 10 minutes later, I informed Marty to text Evelyn saying he was spending the night at his parents' house with their daughter. Not long after that, I found Evelyn pulling out her phone to show Jake, then everyone decided to pack up. Good night. Evelyn came over to me and asked whether Sarah and I wanted to visit for dinner this weekend. I grinned and wished her and her colleagues a happy night. That sounded like a terrific idea. After Mark and I paid our payment and ran back to the waiting Marty, we watched them go. Here there was some uncertainty since we were unsure of Evelyn's actual behavior. I had thought she might have already reserved a hotel room and was on her way, which would have greatly reduced my options and complicated everything. It turns out though, that tonight was most likely meant to be just drinks at the bar. It wasn't until Marty chose to spend the evening at his parents' house that it became anything more. Evelyn headed straight home, and we trailed behind her, parking down the street and keeping out of sight. Not long after that, another car drew into Marty's driveway. We watched Jake get out, approach the door, knock and be met by Evelyn. They entered together. At this moment it's roughly 7:30, and tonight I have personal business to attend to. As a friend, I believe I have done rather nearly all I could have for Marty. He can manage the remainder alone. I mean, I feel awful for the guy, absolutely, but I don't want to participate in this drama any more than I already do. Given my circumstances, it seems excessive for me to be the wingman for him facing his cheating wife. Marty says it's good, he will do the rest himself. Evelyn, perhaps he is more of a man than you could have imagined. He visits Evelyn's automobile, picks my equipment, and we say farewell. That was practically 2 hours ago. My phone hasn't been blowing, hence I'm not sure what's going on with Evelyn. I did get one text message from Marty indicating it was done and he was heading to his parents' place for real this time. Ever then, I have been at Mark's. That sums up my role in Marty's narrative essentially. He entered the house recording with his phone if he was wise and followed my counsel. Later on I will find out. Still, my first focus is getting home to tell Sarah the wedding is off. She almost certainly will take it poorly, there is no way she won't. But as I mentioned, right now I simply cannot get married to her. Though I'm not sure what the future holds for us or whether we will live with each other or not, most definitely we are not getting married anytime soon. For those who keep repeating, why didn't you speak with her first? Why did you not face her? Are you folks dumb, I have to ask? She stone cold lied in front of her brother-in-law, whom she has known for roughly 10 years and allegedly believes to be a truly wonderful husband and father. I'm not wired that way. Maybe you are foolish enough to believe that someone can lie that ruthlessly to someone they should care about and then give you the truth. I never had cause to doubt Sarah or not trust her until that point. She was physically unreliable in front of my face and I should let it go or expect her to be honest with me. You probably have no idea what it's like to have your whole perspective of someone change suddenly. It's confusing and, quite honestly, a little panic-inducing. Since it brought me to the truth, I'm actually surprised I kept my head and followed my instincts instead of rushing her right away. If she had lied to me and then deleted those text messages, I would never have read the terrible things she said, never seen how crafty and two-faced she could be, and never learned how little I really knew about her. It would have been shockingly simple for her to lie to me and then erase those texts. I'm headed home to chat to Sarah. I will notify everyone later with the official result. Not expecting it to be a nice one. Here's still another update for you folks. I suppose there is plenty to cover and that much has transpired. If I'm honest, most of it hasn't been that outstanding. Actually, it has been quite shoddy, but I will get to that. I started off somewhat late that evening leaving Mark's residence. Though she had no idea the company was really her sister's affair, Sarah already knew I was out talking business with him. Still, it was approaching an irrational hour partly because I was trying to muster the strength to go home and confront her. Following 2 or 3 pep talks from Mark, I finally got off my keister, texted Sarah that I was heading home, and drove away. As I mentioned in the last report, I was really taken aback when I arrived since Evelyn was sobbing on the couch with Sarah when I stepped into the house. This was most likely the last thing I expected since Evelyn's car had disappeared from the driveway when I returned home. I stopped momentarily and almost spun around and left. I thought Evelyn's presence would make a terrible scenario a million times worse, so this was not how I expected this to be going down. Still, I had plans for which I wished to advance. The symbolic clock was running in the back of my mind. I had friends to tell and wedding plans to cancel. Both Sarah and Evelyn glanced up at me in thanks when I walked into the room, but the litany of charges never materialized. I just looked back, questioning my eyes. The moment passed. Evelyn returned to crying. Sarah returned to consoling, and I let the awkward half-minute hang in the air as I considered. Marty seemed to have neglected mentioning my help with Evelyn's affairs discovery. Not for any other purpose than to watch how Sarah responded, I chose to play dumb. I settled on a reclining chair, dropped my laptop bag, and pulled my phone from my pocket. I pretended to be fidgety with it, then asked them, "What's going on?" Evelyn simply kept crying, but Sarah turned to look at me and said, "Marty is divorcing Evie." Well, certainly, I figured as much. I chose to forward with the obvious inquiry. "What for?" I said to her. Sarah looked at me and stopped massaging Evelyn's back momentarily. Her face seemed to twist and distort practically. Imagine the look a 5-year-old produces when you order them to finish their lima beans or eat their broccoli. Evelyn looked at Sarah a way I wouldn't have known from a sister, and there was a pregnant silence until Sarah blurted, "She cheated on him." Now, I have to admit, this answer really stunned me. I had definitely not expected this. Indeed, the more cynical readers here could believe that, well, the cat was out of the bag, so there's no point in hiding it. And indeed, that is accurate. She could have, however, equally easily pretended to be ignorant or perhaps phrased it another way. Like Marty accused Evie of cheating, instead of essentially verifying it to my face. Though it's part of my job to pay attention to not only what people say but also how they say it, so maybe I'm being pedantic here. Evelyn wasn't happy about this. She sort of sank into the couch a little and performed this unusual simultaneous sigh and sob. I must have stammered a little, but I wanted to keep on and head for the gold, sort of speaking. Sarah most likely saw it as shock, and although she would have been right in a sense, just not in the way she would have anticipated. Do you know? Sarah nodded, her hand still massaging her sister's shoulder. She said nothing. Not slow, I asked the clear follow-up. How long? 6 months came back far more readily than I had anticipated. Her easy admission to it startled me. Evelyn was startled as well. She smacked her sister's hand off her, and I believe even Sarah was slightly startled to say it aloud. Leaning back in the recliner, I got ready to pull the rest of the Band-Aid clear. We aren't planning to get married. From both sisters, there were 2 looks like surprised goats and a chorus of what? Rising, I repeated myself, we're not getting married. Not for 6 months especially, I cannot wed someone who would hide infidelity. Sarah jumped off the couch and opened her arms, the body language screamed, you can't be serious. But I merely put my palms in front of myself. I take this seriously. Not little, I dislike this. I can't get married to you with way I feel, and I dislike that you participated in this. One would make a mistake here. The waterworks began right away, and even Evelyn performed the perch-like mouth action meant to be sucking air. Wails from Sarah, claims of not loving her, appeals to my sense of obligation, lost money, trouble for all our friends, humiliation of it all. Though it was really nothing I hadn't considered, hearing Sarah express it through agonizing sobbing felt quite different. I responded, look, I already canceled the honeymoon. Trying to persuade Sarah of the finality of it all. Well, maybe not, since I have no idea how long Marty would have kept my involvement in everything off the books. Not happening is what I'm saying here. The second it left my mouth, I realized it was a bomb, and the explosion was almost instantaneous. To her credit, Evelyn had always been really fast on the pickup, which most likely helped her fool her husband for so long. When she combined my look at the bar earlier in the evening with her awareness, I could almost see the realization setting in on her. She yelled, "You son of a expletive," and shot across the room at me. Though I'm not a big man now and I'm not slouch either, the power Evelyn threw at me caused me to lurch backward. I hardly had time to grab my hands before her finger-based raking of my face began. I nearly dropped the phone I still had in hand, but I pushed her away and yelled very loudly, "Evelyn, get off me! Sarah, get your sister in line!" Evelyn sprang for me once more, but shockingly Sarah wrapped her arms around her sister's waist and kept her in place as asked. Holding my phone up for emphasis, I exclaimed, "Get out of here right now, or I am calling the police," at Evelyn. Sarah urged us both to cool off. She doesn't have anywhere to go right now," she told me, and Marty took her car keys. That explained the empty driveway automobile, but it didn't really matter. With Evelyn, I was 100% through and I wanted to make sure she knew it. I marched into my house office, slammed the door, and called the police. I said I had locked myself in my office, had been attacked by the sister of my fiancé, and that I was bleeding from my face. My vision was fuzzy and Evelyn had scraped me really nicely around the inside of my left eye. I was afraid for my life. I even informed them I had on my phone the whole fight captured. Sarah knocked on the door just as I was wrapping out my call through. Kindly leave. We have to discuss this. Kindly, I love you. Please, do not do this. We have no need of doing this. Even Evelyn wants to apologize. She feels guilty. Though Sarah was clearly losing her expletive, I'm rather confident last one was a lie. I ignored her, and her attempts to cajole me from the office stopped most likely just as the cops arrived at our front door. I decided to come out when I heard Sarah chatting to them. 2 men made up the cops. One of them appeared younger than me, perhaps around Sarah's age, and the other one appeared older and more irritated about life in general. I said hello, pointed at Evelyn, said she attacked me, and volunteered to show the cops the tape I recorded. The younger one questioned whether I intended to file charges. I agreed. Once more, he asked me whether I intended to file charges. Again, I answered yes. Both police glanced at each other at this time. Before the young cop could open his mouth once more, I exclaimed, "Yes, damned it, I want to press charges. I have video proof, this is going to court. Else, I'm going to ask your supervisor to come down and handle it personally." Not that we are buddies or anything, but given my line of work, I spend plenty of time engaging with local law enforcement, And I have seen most of the brass or spoken with them on the phone a couple of times in the last several years. I think they were really shocked that I recognized his name. To be honest, I was starting to get really hot under the collar at this point. Although I could see what these men were thinking, I absolutely disagree with it. Facts are what they are. Facts. Yes, I might not be bleeding on the floor, but Evelyn attacked me in my own house and I wanted her gone. Fortunately, the matter did not quickly get out of hand. The two cops detained Evelyn and placed her in the rear of the police car. She was weeping and squealing all the entire time, like some kind of gibbering crazy. Sarah wasn't any better. She merely kept repeating, "No, please no," again and over. The younger cop rounded around at this moment to ask whether everything was fine here. I simply let them know I was heading to bed. Again, he asked Sarah. She didn't reply right away, so he inquired, "Is everything okay here, ma'am?" By now he was clearly searching for something. Though I hated this man, I bit my lip. Sarah only nodded at the cop when she at last realized he was addressing her. Clearly unhappy with this, the man began to ask her once more. At which point I interrupt, "If you want to go on a fishing expedition, you might want to do it over there on the lawn where my doorbell camera isn't recording you." By now I had pushed my luck with this man one too many times, but what could I do? I believe I was most likely around 30 seconds from having the cuffs slapped on me until his teammate arrived and essentially drew him away. Presumably in his late 50s, he was an elderly man who most likely didn't want to handle two arrests straight at the start of his shift, particularly given one of them clearly would be more hassle than it would be worth. He most certainly guided him out of it, and they left carrying Evelyn away and hopefully permanently out of my life. By now I'm considering whether or not I want to remain here. My parents reside a few hours away, and considering how poor I will be in the near future, ruled out either their apartment or a hotel, so I just chose to sleep in the guest room. I told Sarah we would talk tomorrow, that I was sleepy and didn't want to be bothered. She made some fruitless attempts to persuade me to interact with her in conversation or sleep in our bed. She let me alone, thankfully, and I crashed harder than I had in years. Which basically puts us up to current with the most recent upgrade. But, dear Reddit friends, let me tell you this, the next day was most certainly the strangest effing day of my life. I first got up at 11 a.m. Sarah had cleaned the house from top to bottom. She was still home. I mean, the floor gleamed, the toilet shone. I could lick the bathroom's linoleum and it would have most likely been minty fresh. She clearly had been busy, but when she noticed me she sort of hovered out of direct range, not exactly interesting but seeming like she wanted to say something. I understand. Last night was horrible for everyone and she was most likely unsure. Did I just call off the wedding right in the middle of things? Was I treating this seriously? Was I genuinely furious? Breathing deeply, I told her we had to stop our conversation. I considered rebuffing her when she tried to seat next to me on the couch, but I didn't. We were not getting married, so I didn't have to act like I disliked her since, honestly, I didn't. Though I was mildly appalled by some of the things I had read in her text interactions with her sister, I was disappointed in her. Yet, we were both hurting here and I didn't want to make it any more complicated than it already was. For Sarah to really and completely believe the wedding was off, I had some more convincing work. She was not responding well, that is, understated. She was absolutely wrecked. She was, I believe, occasionally hyperventilating. Though clearly not only was this my idea, but I had also had more time to come to terms with it. I was keeping it together better. She finally addressed the important question. What about us? People are going to hate me a lot for this, especially the kind of Redditors who believe any transgression in a relationship qualifies for nuking from orbit. One could even argue that my calling off the wedding resembled throwing a Moab over our 6-year marriage. Actually though, I had no response for Sarah at that very moment. I told her so. I just didn't know. I claimed I read all those text messages and it revealed a side of her I didn't know existed, and that I wasn't sure about her or our relationship anymore. I replied I couldn't understand why she would go along with Evelyn, discounting Marty and participating in, even egging her on, and cheating on not only him but also their daughter too. I know, it was wrong, I know, she said repeatedly. She couldn't offer an explanation when I asked her for one. She merely stated she had to pick her sister and that she got carried away. I told her I considered a good sister to be someone who kept you on the straight and narrow and refused to grant a free pass allowing you to be a douchebag. She agreed with me and claimed she would try better, but Evelyn had always been the boss when they were little and she was always the follower. I get this. I have an older sibling as well, and although I live somewhat more independently, I spent the previous 18 years of my life living on the other side of the earth with him except for the rare trip around Thanksgiving or Christmas. Still, maybe I had a leg up on Sarah since Evelyn was a piece of garbage while my older brother was a great man. Here is where I experienced my second significant effing shock of life in like 48 hours. To me, Sarah adds, "It's not fair, it's unfair." What is not fair? I sought her. I got over it since you were sexting that bimbo wife Mandy lady on Instagram last year. Though I was harmed, I overcame it. Why cannot you move past this? Why, huh? Where? What the devil is she talking about? Mandy, the bimbo wife. Is who? Like, I have no effing clue. I questioned her whether she had a psychotic break or was high. Alright, that was harsh of me, but I have not been cybersexing or sexting anyone, particularly not some Instagram girl. At this point, I'm objecting very loudly. Sarah is yelling at me through her tears, saying she saw the letters last year and chose not to confront me since I had stopped. She apparently had been looking at my social media from my house computer while I was at work, which should have been quite dull given I only have family and a few work colleagues on there. She's just calling me a liar and a pervert and all kinds of expletive, so I try to make this case to her, offering to let her log into all my accounts and check for herself. Things are spiraling out of control and she begins throwing objects at me. I warn her that, should she toss one more item, I will have her removed from this house exactly like her sister. She stomps off to the master bedroom and shuts the door, swears at me. At this point, I am so damned perplexed I hardly know what to think. I power up my desktop, head into my office, and Google bimbo wife Mandy. Indeed, there is an Instagram, a Twitter, a Reddit, even OnlyFans. When I click on one of the Instagram links, a picture of a really curvaceous woman, like obviously stretching the boundaries of science and technology, comes up. And no, try to guess her country, Australia. Everyone, keep in mind all the great things I spoke regarding my brother, who was lodging with us last Christmas, all the way from Australia. Guess who I mentioned? Sure, go ahead and use my office computer to play games if you have jet lag. Based on what I know, my brother signed into either Instagram or anything else after his wife and children went to sleep and most likely paid money to sext with this girl. What fantastic effing man you are. Now I would want to contact my brother and not only confirm my suspicions but also give him a goddamn earful. However, it's like 2 or 3 in the morning. It will have to wait. I am, however, crawling the walls here trying to figure out my feelings about everything. Everyone really lets me down. Damn, what is this planet coming to? I ask myself. Try as I might, it doesn't really come together for a fleeting instant as I try to link whatever the heck Sarah watched my brother do with what she done with Evelyn. She didn't confront me when she saw this. Maybe she's a more forgiving or tolerant person than I am, thus I wish she had. It would have given me a chance to even demonstrate her how I would behave and to straightforwardly explain her my full personal opinion on these matters. I'm not sure whether it would have affected her later on in a positive or negative manner. All I know is that this piece is turning into a novel and I blew off most of the morning when I ought to be getting this out of my thoughts and onto this page. Although I feel better for doing it, there are still most likely 2 to 3 posts to write. I'm not going to upload them to this subreddit longer. I'm not sure they would let me. But, I will try to gently update my profile in the next day or 2 with the rest of the blowout, talking to my brother, talking to my parents and Sarah's parents, and last, where Sarah and I stand. One thing I can say though is that for a variety of reasons most of my direct family ties tend to be somewhat strained. Although my parents are mostly encouraging, as the reality of the financial loss sets in, their support is waning. Indeed, the marriage is still off. From the beginning, that was rather almost guaranteed. Sarah's parents seem a little more agitated. I'm sure they are inserting pins and voodoo dolls made right now in my likeness. For those curious, Evelyn is out of jail. She got Sarah to bail her out, and I even slammed on Sarah for that, labeling her sister's underling, which I believe really resonated with her as she sent me a 20-page letter about how her sister always dominated her over her whole life. Having read it twice, I wish we had discussed this almost anywhere throughout the past 6 years. Perhaps things would be different. Not clear. Anyway, Reddit, if anyone is still interested, expect a last chapter of this tale in a day or 2 and maybe a follow-up when the former wedding date passes. This update has taken more time to arrive at than I had first planned. Many things have kept me somewhat busy over the past few days. It wasn't until today, when I had some free time following lunch, that I could sit down and get this out. I'll aim to get through as much as I can. But before that, let me mention a few things in response to last post comments. I shall attempt to be succinct. First of all, aside from what I know, Marty is still divorcing her. I know not much else about what is happening with his divorce. Clearly, nothing including paperwork exists, but the purpose is evident. Apart from that, I'm not particularly in a position to be supporting any kind of course of action Marty should follow, provide him legal counsel, or help him in doing anything to the other man or tracking out the other man's wife, etc. Growing ass dude Marty can do with the circumstances whatever he wants. As his friend, my role is only to assist him and provide guidance should he so seek. Second, this is not some kind of guerrilla marketing for an OnlyFans female. If it was, I should have posted it on the initial post, which was seen by nearly 3 million people in first page of Reddit. Given that this post became somewhat famous on Reddit, it's not really surprising that bimbo wife Mandy, another Redditor, happened to be following the narrative and spotted her name. It might have easily been any other of the hundreds and hundreds of girls using Reddit to share their photos. And briefly speaking of Mandy, I have in fact chatted with her. She looks personally really friendly, and she was really extremely helpful in verifying stuff for me. But guys, Mandy is married, clearly quite happily, for almost 2 decades. There are no romance plans here going forward. And honestly, genuinely, her husband must be cool with it. Nevertheless, she is far too much for a simple insurance guy like me to handle. With that all out of the way therefore, on to the update. Last time I wrote, I concluded it believing my brother had chatted with Mandy using my office computer, but it was too late for me to get in touch with him. Among those guys are individuals who, once presented with a challenge, have to be actively working on solutions. This is fantastic for my line of work, but in circumstances like this all I was doing was driving myself crazy. I thus made the decision to inhale deeply, wait till later and go on with what I had to accomplish, leaving everything aside. First thing first was trying to get every person from my side who I had invited to the wedding notified of its cancellation. As you may remember, I had previously told my parents and had them call my relatives on the day I made up my mind. Only Sarah and I know the full guest list, thus I had to do the rest alone. Respect for my friends drove me to choose to call rather than text, but this might have been a bad choice since every phone call usually led to a very long justification of why I was postponing the wedding. Though I could have offered some other explanation, I wanted people to know that I wasn't being lazy or perhaps having cold feet, something inane. Not just for my personal reputation, but also in order to honor the people who had pledged to demonstrate support for Sarah and me that day. This meant it was now dawn time in Australia since I just managed to get in with everyone late in the evening. Though I knew what I had to do, I wanted to be sure my ducks were all in line, so I paused in the kitchen to make a sandwich. Sarah wasn't home, I noted. When she departed and settled down to eat and consider what to do about my brother's predicament, I had no idea. For simplicity here, let's name my brother Carl. Carl and I have always been really close even though he is 13 years older than me. In my life, he was this kind of quasi-parental agent as he was already well on his way to become an adult by the time I could have long-term memory. He was always kind with his time, played with his younger brother when other teenagers would most likely have avoided such an activity like the plague, and generally seemed to me growing up to be rather mature and wise. Simply said, I really respected him. I was still getting used to the concept that he had been sexting a female not his wife in my house, and I had to make decisions. Talking to him about it was clear-cut, but at this point I didn't know if I cared about having him confess only to clear my name considering how shoddy my relationship with Sarah was. Anything may be saved though? For minimum propriety at least, I had to holler at him about this and persuade him to stop. I wasn't sure though, if I should tell my sister-in-law about it or not rat him out. Everything rested on what he said me and whether or not I trusted him. After eating, I got onto Facebook and video phoned Carl. Carl is nearly always available during the day and now works largely from home as a remote office worker since his expertise is IT. And today was exactly the same. It hardly rang more than once or twice before his response. We greeted one another, exchanged some niceties, and then I just sort of jumped into it and asked him whether he had been using my computer to sex chat with ladies on the internet when he was visiting me. Carl's expression froze, and he bent over the camera's out-of-frame view, clearly closing his office door. Definitely yes, I did. Ask me why? He asked me. Under my breath, I swore and told Carl Sarah had believed his flirting was me since he used my computer. I told him I wasn't glad to pay the hit for him, and I questioned him straightforwardly whether Karen knew about this or not. He hesitated for a few seconds, stammered over his words, then looked a little ashamed and answered, "No, Karen didn't know. He would want it kept that way." He continued by saying that, mostly in the bedroom department, their relationship had been very difficult since their youngest was born 4 years earlier. Carl had always been a quite reserved guy, particularly in terms of personal details. At least he had always been that way when he was chatting to his much younger baby brother. But this time he merely let it all fall out. Things had been horrible. Karen was always exhausted no matter what he did or how much he helped around the house. He had been bored of being turned down. Eventually, This resulted on issues on his side. Some type of performance anxiety on the few times Karen would actually feel up for some bedroom fun, and things just grew worse from there. Basically, there's no amount of socks picked up, laundry folded, dishes washed, or time spent minding children that would get me laid. It was just not happening, he stated. So I started to spend time in my office at night working. He even used the finger quotes to convey this. Apparently, his working at night became a quite strong addiction to OnlyFans sites, which swiftly spiraled out of hand given the relative privacy he enjoyed at his office for legitimate work. When I asked him whether he was still doing it, he swore up and down saying he wasn't. When he said it, I thought I believed him. He seemed to be honest, but I just got this niggling sensation in the back of my mind that something was wrong. Perhaps it was because of all the dishonesty I experienced lately, but I was questioning my own brother, who has been a stand-up person to me our entire life. Being in this state truly disgusted me. The challenge I now encountered here was somewhat sophisticated. First, I would have to have my brother inform Sarah that it was him all along if I wanted my name cleared. But if he did that, then there was no assurance Sarah wouldn't angrily tell Karen. Though at the same time I didn't know if I felt comfortable perhaps throwing a nuclear on my brother's marriage over something he not only stated he stopped. Personally, I thought it would be better if Karen knew. This sort of moral gray area is what I find. Though I didn't know exactly what to do, I urged him to notify his wife about this and start marriage counseling. They had been coming for the past 6 months, he added, and while it was beneficial, receiving a prescription for some generic Viagra had truly helped him. I really took at that, carefully misting my computer screen with water. He told me they had been attempting to schedule at least a couple of times a week intimate time, and the Viagra had helped him overcome performance anxiety to the point where now they were both looking forward to time with each other after the kids went to bed. Everything was basically, hey, this is actually going in the right direction now, please don't screw this up for us. Not only for the benefit of Carl and Karen, but also for my 2 nieces. I truly did not want to be in this position. And if what Carl was telling me was the truth, I could be hurling a firebomb into a relationship that was beginning to heal. It was uncertain what would happen. Indeed, some people would find it disappointing, but at the moment I felt waiting and seeing was the best choice I had. After all, I was going to see him in a few weeks in person, and once I got him alone in a room and a few beers into him, I was going to most certainly find the truth of this. Still, it appeared to be the best line of action any. I got in early that evening. I saw Sarah just the following morning. She seemed sloppish, as though she slept very little. Mostly out of habit after all, we had been together for almost 6 years. I asked her where she had been. She informed me she had drove Evelyn to her parents' place and stayed overnight, following her down to the courthouse for her arraignment to post bail. She brought up how terrible it was to have to inform her parents I had called off the wedding. She shouted, "Of course they do," when I asked her if her parents knew the cause. Though by now I was losing it, I attempted to keep cool. Bit back at her, "Are you going to move back there so that they have both girls at home now?" Though it was small and insignificant, her bail of Evelyn from jail infuriated me to no end. She urged, "You don't need to be an ass about this." And I responded, "And you don't need to be Evelyn's FC King underling." When I told Sarah that, I could see her clearly withering. Clearly it had connected with people. Her eyes began to tear at the corners, and I tempered my temper. We basically stood miles apart in our house's living room and said nothing for a good solid minute or 2 before Sarah decided to keep on chatting. "Our parents are coming here at 3. I really palmed at this. Just my own ego? I was about to leave on her without consulting her on this. After all, I did have to meet down with them and hash out the specifics of the wedding and whatever remaining deposit we had, and at least once personally explain to everyone why it wasn't happening. Good, let's do this and clear things out." I tried to keep busy, but on a Sunday there isn't much you can do but waste time. Time wasting isn't very fun when you know you're going into the meat grinder in a few hours. Still, 3 p.m. arrived, as did our parents. Just 1 month after we closed the house, we all gathered around the big kitchen table Sarah had purchased. She loved it even though it was secondhand from Facebook Marketplace, as it was solid oak with a lovely finish and fit for seats. She always wanted to have large dinner gatherings with our family over, just not like this. The next 3 hours were tortuous. Nobody should have been happy, none of them were. Unsurprisingly, my own parents were the best source of support I could find. Yet, even that was limited, basically in line with, "Well, it's his decision to make," which more or less implies, "Yeah, we think this is crazy too, but we're still backing him." To be honest, that was great with me. The stigma by connection of calling off the wedding did not need my parents to be obtained. With embracing it, I was good. We finally worked out a reasonable agreement on the wedding. We would try to retrieve whatever money we could, divide it back and then eat whatever losses there were shared together. When it came to the house though, Sarah fiercely disagreed with my suggestion of reimbursing her or her parents the deposit. She basically intended not to move. As you can guess, Sarah and I hadn't really discussed the SRS, same-sex relationship status, living together scenario in too great depth. She was startled when I even mentioned clearing the house equity, since the message here is that I expect her to leave our house. She had a fit, I have no guilt about it. Before attempting to work with her parents on a payment schedule, I should have resolved our relationship status with her first. It definitely indicated to everyone how I felt about our relationship. And Sarah was beside herself. Even if I believe our parents expected it, or at least understood. She made it plain. I am not moving out of my house, and we are not breaking up, she said, clearly rejecting our splitting over this. And that's essentially how my Sunday night came to finish. Sarah and I tried to talk it out some more once our parents left, but we kept circling each other and I had to restrain my natural inclination to run her down until we found a solution. I wanted to switch off my thoughts since, truthfully, I was also rather exhausted. Unbelievably, we ended up just sitting on the couch watching a movie together until it was time to turn in for the night. We left it there with a, "We'll talk about it more tomorrow," and headed to our respective rooms. Monday morning I woke up to a sizable handwritten note shoved under the door from Sarah. I thought I would deal with it later after glancing quickly at the first few pages and headed to work. Sarah still laid in bed when I left. She had to have written that letter late. I started phoning suppliers and venues on my list at the office and set some appointments. It produced mixed bag of outcomes. Under the pretext that I had ordered most of the food, the catering crew insisted that I pay most of their rates. Over here, I shot back at them like, were they expecting me to eat a week-old steak? But my request went unheard. I tried explaining what happened to the woman running the catering company, but it appeared to further strengthen her will to extract as much money from me. By contrast, the DJ I engaged for the entertainment was quite friendly and returned practically all the money. Events proceeded as follows. And during the day, between calls and working, I perused Sarah's letter. This is 20 pages of written work now, hence I will just summarize. The essence of it was that Evelyn has bullied Sarah from infancy onward. Sarah's approach of handling this was to basically follow anything Evelyn wanted to hear. She continued, saying that she was simply terrified and that her life now operated in a kind of generic manner. Fear to upset the balance, create a disturbance, or occasionally even express a viewpoint. I considered this as, honestly, when I look back at our relationship with a more critical eye, I kind of feel that Sarah was a somewhat too perfect of a girlfriend. She never disagreed with me, never chose her plans over mine, or even fairly argued too forcefully against anything I wanted to undertake. She deliberately tried to be helpful and, generally speaking, behaved more or less like a yes-woman in our marriage. Until now, we had never even so much as had a mild debate in 6 years, let alone a full-fledged fight. From a relationship's position, everything sounds fantastic. Until naturally, it isn't. You know, what they call people-pleasing behavior. That is, this deep-seated insecurity and drive to make others happy. When I start looking at it this way, a lot of things make sense to me and I start to realize that despite being with Sarah for 6 years, I really don't know her that well. She seems to have presented this picture all around her, which is essentially a mirror reflecting whatever she believes others desire. In terms of our relationship, she has essentially been playing the ideal girlfriend but never actually letting me inside to see her personally. Hell, it's probably certainly simply another reflection, this time of Evelyn and all her warts and faults. Therefore what I saw in those text conversations is not even the actual Sarah. This sounds strange, but it's as if we are in an unequal relationship whereby perhaps she loves me for who I am and how I present my ideas on my face and my heart on my sleeve. Perhaps though, I love her just for the mirror she is pointing up to my face. I'm right there as well, however I'm not sure if this sounds too metaphysical for you. I'm still attempting to grab by my fingertips this wisp of an idea. The letter Sarah sent me was the first actual insight into her upbringing that I had seen. All I know is that in the past few days, I have most likely learned more about her than I have in the past 6 years. That evening, we continued our conversation, more especially, regarding her behavior and background. Our final decision was that she requires assistance. Too afraid to offend anyone lest she face her sister's fury, her parents' censure, or the loss of love from the one she loves, she is a grown woman who is sadly trapped acting like a child. This is not how a relationship should be, so I can say that I feel far more confident and sure that my call off of the wedding was the right one. Actually, it may not be any more accurate. After our conversation that evening, I went to bed far less tense than I had in a few days. I couldn't locate more, hence the story most likely finishes here. Thus remarked Pepe if you watch this long-ass video. Parents forced me to cancel my engagement party for my golden child brother's graduation. Now they're mad because relatives chose my party. I, 28M, have a younger brother, Leon, 26M, who recently graduated from community college, I might add. About the same time, I became involved with Nina, 28F, my high school love. We have been together for 10 years, and it was about time that we made this official. 2 weeks ago, I proposed to her and decided to invite a party to our house honoring our engagement last weekend. 5 days after the invites were distributed, last night the party was hosted. The drama surrounding all of this has been so bizarre and chaotic that I have no idea how to make sense of it. It all began when I invited my close family. My parents and brother, who contacted me and demanded that I postpone this celebration. For the life of me, I couldn't understand why they would ask me to do such a thing. When I told them I wasn't going to, they informed me they had decided to throw my brother a celebration for his graduation. Naturally, it also occurred to be the day of my engagement party. Although they hadn't yet sent the invites, the same evening I sent mine they were intending to do so. Now, they said, at least one of us had to back off and allow the other honor their significant event. We share a family, hence 2 festivities on the same day would cause a lot of strife and we wanted nothing like that. The cards are out on the table. My family is not especially close. I get along with the rest of my family, but not with my parents or Leon. This is why they were not aware of the fact that I was organizing an engagement party on the same day they were scheduled to be celebrating a graduation. On rare occasions, like when we congratulated one another upon learning of his graduation and when they learned of my engagement, we do communicate. On birthdays and holidays, we wish each other well. But that is about it. It was therefore quite clear in my mind what I intended to do when they asked me to call off my engagement celebration for their day, and I said no right away. Though I mean not to discredit Leon, I believe his graduating from community college at 26 is not as significant as my engagement to Nina, the love of my life, with whom I have been with for the past 10 years. To be honest, right now I hardly give a damn about if I'm undercutting him. I had already sent out the invitations, so I made it quite plain to my parents that I was not going to postpone my event. Since they hadn't yet sent out their invites, they might postpone their thing if they so wanted. Though my parents were not delighted about it and neither was Leon, I thought it was a really decent proposition. Given my brother has always been the golden child, it was not unexpected they were behaving this way. Every small deed he accomplished growing up had to be honored. For example, I recall having this first-time emotion when I was just 7 years old as I knew that on my 5th birthday the celebration had been somewhat quiet. It had simply been my parents, a couple of their acquaintances, and a few of my neighborhood friends as my parents felt I wouldn't even remember the party when I grew up. On the other hand, when my brother was 5, they went all out and actually leased a space so they could throw him a themed party. All I got when I graduated middle school was a congratulation, and a pat on the back. Leon had still another celebration after he finished middle school. It was the same when I started college, graduated from high school, and later on from college. I received no more than a few words of encouragement. I had sort of figured out after middle school that they preferred Leon far more than they did me. I thus started separating myself from them as soon as I graduated from high school and went out for college. Since they were still paying for my education bills, I did not cut them off entirely. But, I sort of stopped talking to them as soon as I started a job. Every time I saw them I was polite to them. But I neglected to maintain in touch and they neither expected me to. Neither of us objected to the circumstances. We had adjusted as we felt was suitable. Leon and I never got along either. We used to argue or dig at each other all the time growing up, and by the time we were in high school we had concluded that we would be better off not talking. To be honest, he is rather different from me and not in the nice sort of difference. My parents treated him right from his early years, which has made him spoiled, entitled and very bratty. Everyone who knows our family would agree, I believe, that he is not exactly the easiest person to be around. Though he was really the troublemaker in high school and nearly got expelled several times, my parents never appeared to have an issue with whatever he did. When he told them he wanted to join a firm a few of his buddies had founded with a revolutionary idea, graphic printed t-shirts for kids and teens, they said nothing at all. That's exciting. Basically, it did not go well. After it failed and he ended up squandering our parents' investment money, which he also received a free pass for, he decided he wanted to go to college. He had to stick to community college and earn a degree in business as his grades were insufficient for it and he had taken rather a few gap years. Now my parents asked me to call off my engagement party so they could celebrate his graduation. Anybody in my place would have done the same, hence there was nothing callous about what I was doing. My parents started acting on the phone as if I was the worst person on the planet for not postponing my party. They claimed that although they had always known I was against my brother, this was simply too much. Though I wanted no drama before my engagement party, I tried to reason with them. Unfortunately, there was simply no conversation with them. I became annoyed at last and told them they were free to have their party on the same day as mine, but I was not adjusting anything to fit Leon or her. I then blocked them. Leon neither bothered to get in touch with me nor gave me an opportunity to discuss any of this. In any case, I did not hear from them for the next 4 days following our dispute. But from many of my relatives, I also learned that they had also gotten invited to Leon's graduation celebration, which fell on the same day my engagement party was taking place. They lacked direction on what to do. I refrained from saying anything for the first 2 days since I truly wanted to keep anyone from entering the conflict between my family and me. I respected that they chose this. It was their decision. I wouldn't worry if my family attended any gathering they desired. They were free to. Deep down, I would obviously be rather offended if a few people turned up for my party, but I couldn't make them do anything. 3 days ago though, I discovered that my parents were following the exact reverse strategy. My cousin informed me that since I have been nothing but terrible to them, my parents reportedly had been advising everyone not to attend my engagement party. Apparently, they had accused me of hosting my engagement party on the same day they had decided to host my brother's graduation party for deliberate intent. After they told me about it, I chose to send invites on the same day for my party and totally stunned them even though they claimed they had been talking about this idea for a few weeks. I figured two could play this game if they were going to badmouth me since they were trying so very hard. Luckily, I didn't have to fabricate such falsehoods to make them look awful. I basically told everyone the truth. Saying that I knew my parents had most likely been trying to badmouth me and offering folks a very distorted view of things, I messaged everyone invited to the party. On the phone call the other day, I therefore recounted what we had discussed and informed them my version of events, that which was the truth. I also mentioned that from my early years, I had to cope with the reality that Leon always got celebrated regardless of his actions and that I had been cool with it thus far. But now it was unfair of my parents to expect me to postpone the celebration of my own accomplishments only to suit them and their golden kid. Now, if any of my family still chose to believe them over me, they were free to do so. But I would truly appreciate it if they did not bother to maintain in touch with me after that. It was a quite direct and to the point argument. Though most of my family merely texted me back to let me know they could understand where I was coming from and that they were on my side, I was somewhat worried about what the reaction to that would be. They had seen personally the kind of treatment I had gotten from my parents straight from my early years. Like a few of my cousins and some of my uncles and aunts who were on the younger side, my family members who belonged to the same generation as I were informed that they would be attending my celebration. Since most of them had RSVP'd, yes, Nina and I were really content. Last night we had an absolutely great time at the party. Surprisingly, almost everyone who had been invited turned there, and I don't even believe it presented a problem for any of them. People informed me they sensed something was wrong about what they were saying when they started getting messages from my parents and refused to believe I would do as underhanded as what they accused me of. I was glad people understood that I was not the type of person who purposefully organized a party on the same day as my brother, simply to take center stage. Furthermore, many people told me they were happy I was not caving in to my parents' expectations as I was right about how unfairly I had been treated all my life. Therefore, not only did I get to celebrate my engagement with my friends and relatives, but also I discovered that, with regard to my parents and brother, most of my family members shared my views. The celebration was generally rather successful, and until this morning I was quite content. My parents and Leon visited me right away when I woke up, the last person I wanted to see. I told them to go away and honestly had no intention of allowing them in when they started ringing the doorbell. My dad countered that they would not be leaving anywhere until they had a conversation with me and that they were here to talk to me. I wanted to contact the cops, but Nina persuaded me to just talk to them once and wrap things up once and for all. I thus decided to let them in, and my folks started throwing charges at me as soon as they did. Since I had only woken up a few minutes earlier, I was somewhat surprised and somewhat confused, yet I had chosen to act since they were accusing me of being rather jealous of Leon. They revealed that hardly anyone had come up for their party, and even those who had showed up left within a few minutes after some polite small talk to be able to make it to my party. They claimed to have heard the message I had conveyed to our cousins. I said that although at first I did not want to do something like that, they had pushed my hand by trying to badmouth me and lie about me. Still, given their loud charges, it felt as though my remarks were not even audible. They thought I was doing all of this only to constantly monopolize the attention and out of jealousy of Leon. I was, they said, separating the family. I suppose Nina came to see after some time that she had no use in trying to hold a conversation with them as they were obviously not polite enough for that. She stepped in and stated she would phone the police should they not leave that very quickly. They left then, but they were still calling me a lot of nasty names. The window shook for a good few seconds when Leon even slammed the door of our house so forcefully as he closed it. Though I chose to let it go, I half-mindedly called him back to let him have it. Like Nina, I was fairly irate. We had blocked all of them, hence an hour after they left we got a message from an unidentified number, probably a friend or someone else's number they were using. The message indicated that although all we said and did, we were still family and that they were rather let down that I had decided to have my engagement party on the same day as Leon's celebration as this was the one thing I could have let him have. They claimed they were merely attempting to provide a good picture of him, even if he was ashamed of his fact that he was already 26 years old upon graduating from college. Besides that, his company had recently failed a few years ago, so he had little reason to rejoice and they were merely attempting to make him happy. I never even considered it in such terms though. They thus claimed to be rather let down and expected me to be more mature about this. They also apologized for trying to discredit me, but they claimed they had no other option as they truly wanted this celebration to go off without a hitch. I have been truly perplexed ever since I got that letter. Though I understand this is classic manipulation on one hand, what if they are truly sorry? We are here asking, am I the asshole, AITA, for having my engagement party on the same day as my brother's graduation party? Nina is very torn as well. Edit. Some of you seem to have a problem with the fact that my relatives did not step up for me and try to do something when they had always known that my parents did not treat my brother and me equally. In their defense, I would just like to say that they did all they could. They always tried to be there for me and were always nice and kind to me. I'm pretty sure that a few of them even tried to speak to my parents to make them realize that the way they were treating me and Leon so differently was not fair to either of us. But my parents did not care, and honestly, what more could they have done? It's not like it was a crime bad enough to warrant demanding custody of me. That would have just been absurd, and I don't think anybody wanted to do that either since they also have their lives and families to think about. Besides, I was doing just fine. I generally stopped having expectations from my parents after a certain point, so I do not mind that they put my brother up on a pedestal and did not seem to care much about me. As long as everything was paid for, I didn't care. I'm on good terms with the rest of my family, and I don't mind the fact that most of them are on good terms with my parents and my brother as well. I haven't made them choose. I had just said that if they chose not to attend my party, then we would have had a problem. But honestly, all of them did attend, and I don't mind anymore if they continue to be on good terms with my parents and Leon. I made that very clear at the party as well. Anyway, most of you were questioning why I even bothered to keep in touch with the rest of my family, and yeah, this is why. I just don't think that it's that deep. This is between my parents, my brother, and me, not them. I don't want to drag them into this for no reason. Update 1. After reading most of the responses on my initial post, I concluded that I had nothing to regret a few days later. After emailing them that I did not feel like talking to them anymore and would really appreciate it if they remained away from me from now on, I kept my parents and Leon blocked as well as the number they had contacted me from earlier. I have not heard from them for the past 3 days and none of my relatives had anything to say either. Still, today was really different. My mother visited us just before Nina and I were ready to head off for work. This was only her. My dad and Leon were not with her. She is generally much more subdued than they are. I chose to invite her in since I felt that we might at last have a civilized conversation like grown-up adults rather than engage in a yelling fight. She told me once she was inside that she was here to chat to both of us, hence Nina had to join the discussion as well. We sat there and then she began by stating she truly regretted whatever occurred lately and wanted to apologize on behalf of all 3 of them. To be honest, I don't really count that as an apology since, had all 3 of them wanted to apologize, they ought to have turned up together and done so. It is not enough just to send my mother apologizing notes. Still, I said nothing about it. Then my mother continued, saying she was still really offended over one item that had happened on their most recent visit even though she realized they had screwed up. She stated she valued our 10-year relationship and thought Nina was like her own daughter, but on their last visit Nina had threatened to call the cops on my father. Now she thought they deserved an apology for that since, no matter what, this was between family and Nina wasn't family yet. Nina had been shouting in my dad's face, threatening to call the police, and had even told him he had to leave our house right then. That had been rather rude. Now, since they were willing to atone for what they had done, she expected the 2 of us to also apologize since we had also treated them disrespectfully, Nina for yelling at my parents, and me for letting it go and passively observing while my fiancé yelled at my parents. For a moment neither of us knew what to say. Then I became rather agitated by what was being said, so I informed my mother that although I valued her gesture of showing up and apologizing on behalf of my family, it was entirely pointless. Since it was just my mom, I had genuinely thought that she would at least make sense and try to right things. They still couldn't let go of their great ego though. She had just wasted half an hour of our time, and I informed her straightforwardly that we did not need a moral lecture from her. Since Nina had arrived at our house uninvited, I told her she was exactly within her rights to shout at whoever she chose. We had opened the door because we honestly thought we could have a conversation with them and clear the air, but they had shown us wrong by acting like lunatic persons and yelling in our faces as soon as the door was opened to them. More crucially, it made little difference to me whether or not they regarded Nina as family. To be honest, she was my family. Even more so than they were. Therefore, neither of us owed them any apologies, and right now I wouldn't want one from them either. Now that she had said whatever she came to say and we had listened to her out, I informed my mother we were done and she had to leave. She refused to get up though, and declared she would not tolerate this kind of behavior from me. Since I was not even interested in communicating with my family anymore, it really started to get a little annoying. I ended up telling my mother that I really did not care what type of behavior she would take from me. I had separated myself from them anyhow once I graduated from college, and now, following all that had transpired, I just wanted never to talk to them ever again. I wanted her out of my life, hence I was fine with it if she disliked this kind of behavior. She did not have to put up with me. The same went for my dad and brother. After a little argument, she informed me that they were leaving now since I had made it quite plain that I did not want them in my life, and she was going to make sure I never got to see them ever once again. I assured her I was good with it, and she departed at last. We arrived late for work by a lot, but at least this interaction will help to bring an end to all of this since, to be honest, I'm sick of my family. Every time any of them show up at my house, I just call the cops. That's it. Update 2. Hey, 3 weeks have passed since my last report. Nina and I had quite anticipated this entire thing to have blown over by now. But last night, my folks decided to pay Nina's parents a visit. As I mentioned, we have been together for 10 years. So, even our families know each other really well, and Nina's parents reside a few blocks from mine. They thus showed up at their house around 10 in the night to discuss our children and their terrible behavior. Nina's parents first didn't know what to do since they heard about our recent arguments, but they let them in finally since they wanted to be polite. Nevertheless, they began moaning about how they didn't even know where they had gone wrong with parenting me and were so unhappy that I had turned out this way, whereas Leon was the model of what a wonderful kid should be right away. They began discussing how he was still living with them since he did not want to forsake them in their old age, yes, as if that were the real reason and not because he lacked the means to live by himself. Neither do my parents ask him to pay for any other bills or expenses, they let him live rent-free. Still, they continued for a few minutes, endlessly praising Leon and disparaging me as nothing but a disappointment. By then Nina's parents knew they were most likely a bit drunk. Then they began discussing Nina and the manner she had allegedly offended them the last time they had seen her. She had always been a shy and quiet child, thus they were rather surprised since they informed her parents they did not mean to be nasty but they had never expected Nina to behave this way with them. But she had started displaying her actual hues ever since she got the ring on her finger. Still, they seemed there because they had a scheme in mind. Not too far off, they would be able to bring us into line and increase our respect for our parents. Their idea was a great one. Presumably Nina's parents and neither their parents would be willing to pay for our wedding, so we would be left with no other choice except to apologize for our actions and try to be better children to them. We have always had a decent relationship with Nina's parents, hence I find it strange why they would bring them into any of this. They're, the word, oh yes, normal, unlike my folks, who are as crazy as they come. After mine left, Nina's parents phoned us and updated us on what had happened. Though I really wanted to be furious with them, the whole event was so strange that we all ended up laughing over it. I'm quite happy that she and her parents did not find an issue in my parents' behavior since, otherwise I may have been in trouble and once more I would have had to apologize for my parents' activities. My prospective in-laws, however, are really laid back and informed me I had no need to worry about any of it. They did not mind as they knew that both of my parents were not right and had known them for a long period. The following time my parents came up, they would simply refuse to let them in. Still, I'm happy we could straighten that out without any problems. I simply hope they get the hint and avoid bothering Nina's parents once they don't get any reaction from her. Still, just for good measure, I'm going to unblock them and warn them not to harass anyone else in the family. Or, I will be compelled to go legal after action. Though I'm not sure what I would do, I'm rather confident they will be scared even if I simply lie about it, therefore maybe they may back off. Right now that's the strategy. See whether they attempt something humorous or not. Update 3. Hey, I last blogged over a year ago and I haven't heard from my brother or parents in practically that long. It has been indeed the best year of my life. 2 months ago, Nina and I also got married. Everyone I love was there for the wedding. We had an amazing time, and a few weeks back we at last came back from our honeymoon. My parents did not wish me well, and neither did Leon. Part of me is happy since otherwise I would have had to deal with them. I'm just loving married life right now, and I am looking forward to spending the rest of my life with her. I'm not really bothered about anything as long as she is at my side.